Hello and welcome back to episode, I believe, 18 of
Yep.
Gamer Chat. We're just here with Lotus and Skull today. Uh, we are going to continue on this writing trend that we're on and discuss characters in terms of developing a character and some of the characters that we have developed and also using them as examples as we go along here.
Oh
So,
boy.
let's kind of start with the big one here, Skull. The process of developing a character.
All right. Um, it's like relatively straightforward, but also not because it's kind of different for everybody.
That's true. Like, that's like one of the big thing you need to always remember first and foremost is that the way that you do something is going to be very different versus how someone else does it. Especially in terms of which order people tend to create stuff, especially when it comes to their stories. Because I have met people who the first thing that they do is create the world in which their characters will, inhabit, versus someone like me who the first thing that they create is the characters, and then the world
The
is built
same
around
way.
them.
The same way. Usually, a world doesn't get created until I'm like, this is a cool character concept. Wouldn't it be funny if this was how the world was? And then it just devolves from there.
Or evolves. Take your pick, right?
Yeah. It's usually both simultaneously. It's development, but it's also really stupid concepts at first that end up becoming serious later on.
Well, that's the thing. Is like you don't think these silly, fun ideas will actually be, of good, source material or not really like that. Story material is probably a better thing to say, but like it's still good in the end. Like the more
Yeah,
you think about it, the more you kind of flush it out along the way too, because that's ultimately what
yeah.
it is.
Uh, yeah.
Got anything more
I
you
mean, I
might want to
can't,
add?
I can't really speak much on character development beyond that because my process is an absolute mess.
Well, what exactly is your process?
Um, I think the best way to describe my process, honestly, is aggressively throwing buckets of ideas at the wall and seeing which ones don't stick, and then taking those and running with it.
So you take the ones that don't stick or do stick?
Usually, I say it like this because usually it's all these like well-known character development things or like the things that kind of make a character generic. I usually run with like the wackier ideas and go based off of that for fun. If a character becomes a character, then it does. If not, then it wasn't meant to be.
All right. And what are some of the characters you've developed with this method?
The big one is Delta. He's the only one that I really use as a character now that isn't based off of like an existing media that was
Okay.
created using this method.
Why don't you tell us about him a little bit?
Oh boy. Fuck, I just had it up. Where's his character profile? Um, do you want me to just go into like the details I have written down or?
Let's say a little bit of everything.
Okay, well, for starters, I think I've covered this a little bit in a different episode, but Delta originally was kind of just meant to be a more exaggerated and goofy version of me.
Okay.
And as time went on, I started getting little ideas on like what I could do with the character, which I tried. And eventually Delta kind of evolved into its own it his I confused myself into their own being other than just intended to be like persona self representation thing.
Okay. Go on.
Started out as just like, okay, here, this is what we've got, just cartoon representation of me. Um, my first interesting idea, I say in quotes, was like, hey, wouldn't it be weird to have some kind of angel demon hybrid character? Which is what Delta was for fuck the longest time until I think maybe a little over half a year ago, I started messing around with the concept of just having Delta be um, kind of cursed in a sense, born to a family of angels who made a deal with someone they shouldn't have and was cursed to be what he is now.
So, born to a family of angels that made a deal with someone that they shouldn't have.
Yeah, I haven't really expanded on like who too much yet, but
Okay.
yeah, led to Delta being cursed. And with what I'm kind of running off of right now, his family was like, yeah, we can't have that as a part of the family.
So basically kicked him out.
They didn't kick him out, they just kind of went with, okay, what can we do to make us not look bad? And resorted to drugging him for a majority of his life so that way that side of him doesn't show.
Ooh.
Everyone just kind of thought he was human, which,
Alright.
as uncommon as it would have been with the world, everyone was just like, whoa, cool.
Human.
That's so uncommon and rare. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So as he finally goes off to do his own thing and he kind of doing stops taking the meds or whatever you want to call them that his parents were forcing him to take as a kid. Slowly things start to reveal themselves. Everyone's kind of shocked, thinking, okay, must be this
You
very
know,
early on.
just put a little,
But
just a little suggestion your way. If you wanted to go a really dark route, I saw this was kind of like an American Dad, one of the earlier episodes, and I don't know how much have you watched of American Dad.
a handful of episodes.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen the episode where Stan develops a friendship with Barry, one of the fat friend of Steve's group. Did you
Oh
see
boy.
that episode?
I might have.
Okay, well, basically, like, just for a quick rundown of the synopsis, we get this like very early, like establishment that Barry takes these vitamins, and he eventually runs out, and he's like, "I need to go home and get more." And Stan's like, "You don't need that shit." And then, as like the effects of the vitamins runs off, you just begin to see that he's actually very intelligent, but he's also a psychopath. So the medication was dumbing him down, essentially. So if you want to go really twisted, you can make like Delta believe that these are like vitamins for him that he's needed to take in order to be like a healthy boy all his life.
Oh my god.
Like if you really want to go dark and twisted, that's actually a really good way. Like you know,
That fits with the direction I'm planning on taking Delta on.
oh there you go. These things like I know a lot of us tend to write more darker tones and stick with the darker elements in our stories. And I was thinking, this sounds a lot like that episode, and it'd be a lot like worse, in my opinion, if you actually did like vitamins and like the gaslighting, like, oh yeah, eat these so you're a big healthy lad and whatnot. And it's just like
Oh, I can see his mom doing that too. Oh no.
it's like we love you,
Oh
son. Take these
no.
vitamins. The girl to be big and strong.
Oh no.
You're welcome.
You've given me an even more you've given me a good reason to make his mom worse than she was.
Hey, I'll take it.
Speaking of Delta's mom, Delta's absolutely terrified of her.
I can see why. Already. But I continue.
Yeah. Um Delta's entire reason for being scared of his mom is honestly like I'm still trying to iron out the details there, but she's not the best parent. He was very much under that like I've got to do everything in my power to do as best as I can for my mom to make her proud of me
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm not, she's mad and she's scary. It's like the most simple way I can explain it right now.
I mean, that's
If that makes
more than
sense.
enough to be entirely honest, because mostly because I've actually lived that kind of life. I lived with a mother that's pretty much been like that, where you have to live up to these expectations. You have to do this perfectly. You cannot slip up. As long as you do as you're told and what you're expected, everything will be fine. But the moment you make a single mistake, no matter how small, they will explode. And it is terrifying when they do, because all they do is basically yell at you. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, so there's that. I think around I want to say about when Delta was in like ninth or 10th grade, like just old enough to get a job, he started working to save up for school and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, with the start of the story, once I actually start writing and publishing it somewhere, posting, publishing, whatever, uploading, um, we're going to be introduced. He's just moving into new apartment in the city. He's going to be living in for school. And this entire time, so you've got someone who thinks he's a human living in a place that's just full of mythical creatures, and everyone thinks, okay, he's a human. What the hell is he doing here? He shouldn't be here. So you've got this confusion on both ends.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Until they realize that he's not human.
Yeah, which is it's gonna be a fun little um evolution of thought there. With I've explained to you the whole like wizards and stuff in that world, right?
I believe you have to me, yes.
Okay. Or I might have talked about that in the story building episode, didn't I?
Maybe, but then again, like, memory is not what it needs to be.
Okay, well for context, just in case I haven't, mythical creatures, there's different types. You've got your spellcasters, wizards, whatever. You've got your more monstrous mythical creatures and pretty much everything in between. And nothing is recognized as that by humans. Humans aren't typically drawn to these areas. They usually see them as high crime, whatever. So there's your context for the confusion. Anyways, the people around Delta who slowly start to like feel the magic mythical aura or whatever it is. Still haven't fully explained that either, but it's gonna be okay. He must be some kind of late blooming wizard, which would explain why no magic was felt. But as time progresses and Delta's true self starts to surface more and more, everyone's kind of just like, oh shit, we were wrong. What is he?
Surprise!
Surprise! Yeah. Not It's not going to be a fun realization for Delta either, I can tell you
Well,
that
no, it's
much.
not because this boy's lived. Like, how old is he when he figures out? That's my first question.
I think he's about 1920.
So no, yeah, if you've lived your entire life being told you're one thing, basically that in his case, yeah, he's human, that he's not this mythical creature or in some people's cases abomination, that's going to come as a very big shock to him because basically his
Yeah.
entire life has been nothing but a lie.
It's
And
especially it's going to be especially bad when he realizes that the entire reason why his parents did it is because this, rich, very well-known family of angels can't be seen with a son who's a demon.
it's like, well, then you should have thought of that before you made a deal with so and so.
Yeah. I mean, my thought process there is that they kind of forgot that the deal was their youngest son, or youngest child, is going to be cursed to this. So, I guess second
No.
child. It's been a long enough period of time, Angels, immortality, living a long lifespan without realizing that, hey, this is still gonna happen.
So then that also begs the question, like, what if, I know you said the youngest son, but if there are also immortal angels, wouldn't that also leave the, like, opportunity for more children to come down the line?
Or, yeah, stupid wording, second child.
Okay. I was gonna say, because, yeah, no, like, if it's the youngest, then yeah, that leaves for them, like, their answer could easily just, like, keep having children so no one ever becomes the youngest. Until, like, something bad would eventually happen, or like it has to be like written almost like it set in stone when a last child would be born
Yeah,
eventually. So like, yeah, it's messy. That's why they always ask
yeah.
for the firstborn, because even if it's an only child, they still have the child. It's still the firstborn.
I mean, if I really want to get technical with Delta being trans, it could be firstborn daughter. The curse would still take effect.
Yeah, in most cases it's not like super technical though, so it's like it's usually like just the firstborn or the second, or like the special case where it's the seventh son or the seventh son and that kind of craziness. Never really understood that trope personally, but so be it.
I'm ironing things out. I have notes. I should get a notebook out.
You should get a notebook out.
An actual notebook.
Well, yeah, it's an actual notebook. That's the best thing to take notes in.
Or even graph paper works. No, fuck. I need paper. Some kind. Hold on. I have a notebook.
Nope, a
Trying not to
notebook
trip
works.
over the dog under my feet because he'll start getting grumpy.
Well, then he shouldn't be under the feet. At least in my opinion. I need something here.
Alright, I have notebook. Cool. This wasn't intended.
Well, of course not. I don't think you intended to be able to, like, take notes and get ideas from this.
You seem
That's
to forget I'm not all that intelligent.
Oh, don't worry. I'm unfortunately forced to remember.
Yesterday was a good reminder, I take it.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a good reminder yesterday.
But
This is actually what I'm looking
with
for.
with what you mentioned about that episode of American Dad, it's actually really funny. That was what my initial concept with the whole like repressing part of Delta was.
Okay.
Yeah, the initial story was a lot darker, and
I
it was more so his parents selling him.
So it almost fall in the line with like what I wrote for Aki,
Yeah,
except
this was
for
before. This was before the campaign, though.
fair enough. Oh,
What?
hmm. Oh, don't mind me. I just dropped something.
Oh man, what convenient timing.
Always, right?
Yeah. But running along that sort of theme is kind of where I was going with Delta initially, until I realized that I wasn't really getting ideas writing with that line anymore. Wasn't making sense anymore, and I didn't think people would actually want to read it if I ever did make a story or comic out of it.
Well, you never
So
know, because, like, people can be drawn to a lot of things, after all.
yeah, I mean, my big reason for scrapping it was because I just wasn't feeling it anymore.
I think it's a very valid reason to scrap something.
Yeah, I
And
wanted to
you,
keep working with. I wanted to keep working with Delta though, so I took him back to the drawing board, and again I did the. I'm gonna throw stuff at the wall and take the ideas I like,
fair enough.
which is why we're where we are now. And the last 2 years have actually gotten me somewhere with Delta.
Slowly but surely, right?
Yeah. So, I know I mentioned before Delta's mother scares him, but his brother also was in a similar way. More so because he was like the mean older brother type, you know, gonna bully my little brother.
So we basically went along
Funny.
with the mother and ostracizing the youngest, essentially. Well, the second.
Yeah.
Makes me think of Isabella from Encanto.
Oh boy.
You've seen Encanto, right?
Yeah, yeah, I have.
So then you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? With Isabella and, and Mirabel.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. I hear people say that, like, that's not realistic or you can't draw that from real life. Oh, trust me, you absolutely can. I
Mm-hmm.
understand exactly why Isabella is the way she is. And that's what makes her so great. You know, fun fact, if you listen
We.
really carefully to the We Don't Talk About Bruno song, whenever they're doing that whole, like, big finale and they're, like, singing,
Mm-hmm.
if you listen to what she's saying, she's constantly saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I'm like, are we, though? Are we really fine?
Hmm.
It's why I like her character so much more, because, like, you know there's more under there. But yeah, no. That's what that reminds me
Enjoy.
of. Hey, it's what we like. We like layers here, right?
Yes. All of our characters are like onions.
Oh, fuck, you've no idea. Especially once we get to mine, like, holy hell.
Yeah.
Like, that was one thing during my master's program for, like, writing and whatnot. That was one thing my teacher was quick to compliment me on, but also warn me on as well. Like, she was very amazed by my ability to write complex characters and stories, but she also warned me against making it too complex because then people wouldn't understand it at that point, which, to be fair, that can happen anyway. Woo! Mm.
Yeah.
Num num.
If you want to go on, you can. If I have any more I want to say about Delta or remember anything else, I'll.
Oh, you're done already?
Yeah, my notes are a mess, and apparently didn't save last time they added.
That is fair. All right.
Also, I need to make updates with the new ideas.
That's also fair too. So then you're free of roommates and other distractions. So let me ask you, is there any characters of mine that you would want to hear about? Any that have
Uh,
struck your fancy of the plethora of them that you've been exposed to?
I mean, you know the obvious one.
Arthur? Amongst them?
Yeah, that's one of them.
You're gonna have to be a little more specific about the obvious one then.
I mean, does he count? You've put out short story for him.
Oh, Aki?
Yes.
Oh, dear lord. Well,
What?
so Aki or Aki, take your pick, it's pronounced either way. Was a D&D character for our first campaign. He was made to be an NPC that before Skull here joined the campaign would have been an enemy, because this character was designed to be something of an assassin. Not a very necessarily discreet assassin, but a very flashy one in terms of the way that he killed his targets was basically setting everything on fire where no one would see him. And I brought this race over from Pathfinder because in 5e it doesn't actually exist because you have the Genasi, which is essentially the substitute for what it is. But I made him an Ifrit, like the offspring of the Ifriti genies. So he had that kind of I guess in most cases he'd have the fire resistance, but I bumped it up to fire immunity, but also made him extremely weak to water. So it kind of give and take kind of thing. Just kind of tweaked a few things here and there. But he was going to end up being this very powerful force that the would have had this whole like plot line of them tracking down this assassin and either bringing him to justice or whatever the case may be. That was until Skull joined the campaign. And we go with the tried and true unintentional seduction. And then a character that went from being a villain went to being the fucking boyfriend to the naive, innocent little rogue, not rogue bard. I'm just like, how the fuck do you do these things? It's like Jeremy all over again, except for this. I don't think this was intentional.
No, it was a complete accident.
It wasn't a complete accident. It was. I'm just like, are you fucking with me? Okay, so there wasn't really any deeper before that Skull, honestly. It was just going to be them dealing with a very cocky, uptight, very distant type of assassin that just generally hated people and hated his life, essentially, but just kind of learned to roll with it. It wasn't until you actually seduced him. I'm going to use that term. Uh, that after that, it kind of like was pushed a little more. Same with Rose, same like there wasn't much to them before, but as I had a chance to play them more, I was able to get a feel for the characters a lot better and add more to them because that's kind of how I write, and it's both fun but also very detrimental at times because if you're going to do things like write a full-on story with a very set goal and everything in mind, you have to be careful of what ideas you introduce down the line. It's why I can't really write novels like that because my ideas are constantly changing, and that includes my characters. Because when I come up with the idea for a story with the characters, I might come up with an idea down the line that could drastically change what will happen and how the characters will respond. Or I might want to do something with a character that I really want, that I really like, but it's gonna do a lot of things. So usually that's why I like D&D because again, I'm not the actual storyteller when I'm the DM. I'm just the person that overlooks it all. It's my players that are the actual story players. So as you guys interact with the world, it gives me a chance to develop more on the world because I'm playing along with you guys, but I'm not actually telling the story. I'm watching you
Makes
guys
sense.
tell the story. So, but Aki became more of a broken character down the line because you can pack a whole bunch of trauma in one character and people just fall all over it.
It's
Also,
like
go
it's like
ahead.
that slaps roof of car meme. Slaps roof of car. This baby can fit a lot of trauma.
Oh my gosh, it absolutely can. Absolutely. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. And not to mention, I guess call me a sick person for this, but the most interesting characters to me are those that have experienced trauma because can warp someone so much. And I can get into that more a little bit later on how trauma can affect certain people and how it can result in different outcomes. I guess a very quick example of this is me and my sister. We were raised the exact same way, same mother, same father, same very strict upbringing, but the way that the two of us turned out was radically different. And it's actually kind of surprising. Like, if you were to look at the two of us, you wouldn't really think we were sisters just based on how we act. And not to mention, like, again, like, I was the quiet, reserved, strong one. She was the rebellious, misunderstood youth that just, wanted freedom, essentially. That was where she came up. So, again, like, it's amazing what experiences can do to someone. Because even if you would say, like, that can't happen in real life, that's unrealistic, it's like, trust me, some way, somehow, somewhere, it's realistic. Someone has experienced it before. Just because
Yeah.
you haven't experienced it or known someone that has doesn't mean it's not possible. Always remember that. It's why even when writing my characters, I tend to forget sometimes that um, I tend to try and keep it real because there's always also another strength of mine is writing grounded, realistic characters because then it creates something that people can parallel to, like detach to almost. They can
Yeah.
see themselves into. That's the important thing. It's not necessarily the representation and diversity, even though it is important to have those things because it is realistic of life itself. But it's also important to make good characters in terms of personality, history, and things like that, as long as they're
Mhm.
line up with the world. Because that is what's going to drive your story, is going to be your characters. And if you can't make compelling characters that are interesting, then you're going to lose interest. I think that's what got a lot of you, my players, my D&D players. I know Ruthless. Ruthless has been very vocal on that, how he did greatly enjoy the NPCs I had created for the campaign. And I believe you've also said that too, haven't you, Skull?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I know you two, because you two are definitely the two biggest role players as well. You two interact with the world. Well, he interacts with the world a little bit more with the NPCs, but you focus more on interacting with the NPCs in particular,
Yeah.
versus the others that just kind of float in a
Yeah.
nebulous of nothing.
Mhm. Well, when it came to even just using the roleplay chat,
It's still mainly you and Ruthless. So Ruthless, of course,
yeah,
was the biggest one because he's a D&D player. He wants to interact with the world. Like, he's getting something from this campaign he might not see in a lot of other campaigns. So, like, I can understand that from him. And I do enjoy it. It's fun. Because again,
yeah,
like, I get to play characters. And characters are the one thing I really enjoy creating and developing.
yeah.
So from Key, who would you want to hear about next?
Well, you mentioned Arthur.
Okay, so this is where we start getting into the trauma aspect. All right, I'm putting up my drawing. This is let me lounge a little bit and get comfy.
While you do that, I'm gonna start working on sketch of Esther.
See, look, we're switching it up. I'm the one talking while you're the one drawing. It's great. uh, but anyway, okay, so Arthur was probably through one of the most difficult characters for me to create at the time because the concept of Vanguard came as a spiteful dream against Miraculous because I am someone who does enjoy superhero content to an extent. I don't care for Marvel and the MCU and what Disney has created of it. It's not to say like what they have done is bad. It's just not my kind of cup of tea. I fall more in line with DC and their like animated shorts, not shorts, but like animated cartoons and things like that because you get to see more of the characters in the world in that case. And I've always kind of enjoyed just the modern world with people like supernatural powers. It just I don't know, there's something about it that's fun. It's like magic but not magic. You know what I mean? Anyway, Skull.
Yeah, sorry. I was muted.
You're good. Just try and pay attention a little bit, alright? This is gonna be like a conversation between two of us, remember that.
Yeah.
But, with the concept of Vanguard trying to be something of a Batman Joker superhero kind of thing, it created like this issue of like what should my villain be? What should the issues be? What drives him towards villainy? And I tried a number of things where parents didn't care about him, parents ignored him, parents abandoned him. He just was a spiteful little shit despite having a good life. There was a lot of things that Arthur went through before he came to what he was. But I would have to say where he did end up at the end is probably the best thing I could have done for him. Where we have Sparrow, who is very cookie cutter from the start, very simple and easy to make. A small town hero who comes to the big city to, make her name. She wants to be a hero. She wants to be recognized as something more than just a small town, helper, a small town hero. She wants to be more. But she also doesn't realize just the difference between a small town and a big fucking city. You go from basically one gas station, one grocery store to a city like Chicago or New York or, things like that. Like a metropolis. Not a city, but a metropolis. Like, just, yeah, massive. And so with Arthur, it just needed something to contrast that, but also would be grounded in reality, despite being, not really realistic because of the powers. But that's a whole nother thing. It's like, you know what I mean, right, Skull? When they like people like,
Yeah.
it's like it's not real because they have powers. It's like, well, that's not important. I mean, it is for like the story, but regardless, it's still real enough. That's the point.
Hmm.
But I used Arthur's powers more into his backstory while leaving it also a little open for interpretation. Granted, that can also backfire horribly given how some people can be, but
Yeah.
regardless. Yeah. What started out as just a young boy who loved music was trapped into a household with parents who did not love each other, hated each other, and resented their son a little bit. And how on the outside they would put on appearances and make it seem like everything was fine until they got home and everything broke apart. It being a household that is very toxic and not healthy for raising a young child, even worse when you have it slowly falling more into disrepair when you have a father who just vanishes to go drink his sorrows away because he's not happy with his life, and the mother with, you know, just being how she is, unable to actually process everything and not able to effectively take out her anger, so to say, would go to her son and use him as a punching bag, essentially. And that being when Arthur discovers his powers and realizing that he can make his own little family with his parents, that he can make them into the proper family, and does so until he can't anymore, in which case they both abandon him.
Yikes.
Yes. And of course, before they both end up abandoning him, they make it very clear to him he is nothing but a monster. And that is drilled into him.
Oh,
Yes. So you have from a young age where he's basically abused, where he spends 10 plus, like roughly 10 years, like, no, yeah, 10 plus years of manipulating his parents to make them into the people he actually wanted them to be, to where his dad broke free first, called him a little monster, and just abandoned them both on the spot right there. He pieced out the very moment he broke out of it. I say broke out,
damn.
but essentially the song ends on him is what I use what I refer to it as. It eventually ends with the mother as well, but she doesn't leave immediately. Instead, It's probably almost just as bad. She actually continues to abuse him in terms of.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, she completely silences him. No music, no nothing, no song, absolutely nothing. Dead silence. He's not allowed to speak or anything. And over half the time, she's never even home.
Jeez.
Yes. And even though it is a short period that she does this, it is still enough to destroy a young man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Arthur is 17 at the start of Vanguard. And I know at that point you're not really stabilizing in terms of hormones, but you're starting to slowly get there. But you're still emotional. You're still
Yeah.
vulnerable, essentially. And for someone who is supposed to be like your protector, you're someone you're always supposed to look up to and things like that, like someone you can always turn to, that he doesn't have that with her. Instead, he just gets beaten down again and again. And he can't do anything because, in his own mind as well, they are right. He is a monster. He manipulated them and used them. He made them into what he wanted versus what they actually were. Even though it was for the right reasons to him, it was still bad in the end, and he sees himself as much of a monster as they see him as one.
Oh no.
Yes. And that's kind of a thing that is internalized at that point. Bless you.
Sorry.
And you don't start seeing a turning point until he comes across someone with a watered down version of his powers, because Arthur can use mind control. That's what it ultimately is. It is mind control. He can take full control of a person and make them his puppet.
Oh boy.
Yes. Again, it also feeds more into it because he's never seen other people with powers like his. So it makes him an outlier, an outcast even more.
Yeah, that would make someone feel very alienated, especially a young person.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like you can already see the trauma that's packed into this boy.
Yeah. Again, slap roof of car. This boy can fit a lot of trauma.
Absolutely, it just fits so much fucking trauma, and something of a healing process. I'd say healing. It's more healing in quotes because it's a very long process for Arthur, and it's gonna be one that continues even to adulthood for the poor boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this shit ain't easy. Remember this. Be careful what you say to people.
Understandably.
But it's not until he meets someone with very similar powers to his, but like their watered down version. So essentially, it's Hans, and Hans is that one kid in high school that needs to fuck everything and everyone.
Oh no.
It's the Playboy. We all knew one. Oh my gosh, I knew a few. Actually, a few of them were in my friend's friend group. Oh boy, what a time high school was. But he's that person, and his powers is, as Celia put it, of course, but being able to plant suggestions in people's minds through dance. Essentially, a watered down version of mind control.
Damn.
Yes. And it's not until Arthur sees someone with, okay, similar enough powers, again, watered down, it's not until he sees this that he's kind of resents Hans, but also has the awareness to know it's not just resentment, it's envy. Because this person who has powers like his uses them so freely and openly. Something at times he wishes he can do. How
Makes
this essentially playboy just has no problem doing whatever the fuck he wants and damn the consequences. So,
makes sense.
yeah, and eventually it does lead into him. Well, he gets pushed a little bit more, I guess you could say, because his mother does indeed abandon him. And her last words, not even actually said to him, she wrote him out in a book she intentionally left for him to find, with all the pictures of him scratched or ripped or cut out of all photographs.
Jeez.
And the last words essentially written out to him was "Goodbye, monster." So, trauma. That boy's gonna be scarred for life.
Boy, he needs a hug. He needs a hug and a cookie
Well, not long out,
and
like,
some
well,
therapy.
here's the therapy is essentially yes. It's kind of bad because the moment he finds this, he goes into a full breakdown where he tries to figure out what he's gonna do, and how he feels very alone in this because he's got in his mind the only thing that he can do is keep this a secret. He can't let people know. Then he also has to find a way to cover that up. He basically goes into shock and shuts
Oh
down into
no.
a catatonic state for a few hours.
No.
Uh huh. And it's not until after meeting with Hans that he begins to realize that he could potentially use his powers, but he'd have to hide himself as he does it. Kind of creating a persona, essentially. That is when he becomes Nightingale. And once he actually steps into being Nightingale, he begins to realize how much he's missed singing, how much he's hated actually being silenced, being stuck in a cage for as short as it was damning. And now that he's broken free, essentially, he doesn't want to go back, and he can't go back. It's kind of the thing that some people don't really realize is that once you've escaped from a certain space, you can't go back. It's
Yeah.
a really good example I can pull of this was Frozen. So all the entire movie, Elsa, we've seen like Elsa's whole mantra is conceal, don't feel, don't let it show, and that is, my gosh, you have no idea. Um, But it's not until after Anna and everything, and she kicks Anna out of her ice palace, we see that she's trying to regain control after she learns that she's basically created an eternal winter. But you see, as much as she tries to conceal, to restrain her emotions, she can't anymore because she finally let go. And now she can't ever go back to how it truly was. You can try, but nothing will ever be the same again because you've experienced freedom, and you'll never truly want to go back once you've experienced it. It's the same way with almost like Entangled, how as she begins to experience the world, Rapunzel doesn't really want to go back to her tower. She's fighting with
Yeah.
herself to go back to the tower, but she doesn't really want to go back after all the things she's experienced, especially after Eugene when she falls in love. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's essentially what happens with Arthur, but he's gonna get caught up in an interesting little side of the world, but
Ooh.
it's gonna, I can't say it's not gonna help him feel any less alienated, but it's gonna help him meet people who are very not really somewhat similar to him in terms of powers, of people who are unique, ostracized, outcast, that don't fit into the perfect mold of the association, essentially, and seeing how that has also affected them as well, and so on and so forth. So Arthur's path is going to be an interesting one, especially when it comes to a certain character that is in both Sparrow and Arthur's stories. And it's probably my first attempt at a static character. The more I thought of her character, um, and if I'm not mistaken, there's two classifications for characters. There is static and dynamic characters. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's what, if I remember correctly, that's what it is. And dynamic characters are essentially, they change. They are put through hell on earth and they end up changing from where they started to becoming a different person. Static characters are people who don't necessarily change throughout their story, but instead have their beliefs questioned. I wouldn't even say question for that. Well, it depends if they're the main character at times. Sometimes people can just stay static, but it can also be entirely complex too. It's kind of interesting. And would you care to hear about this particular character, Skull?
Sure.
So, I know you've seen her. I've posted images of her. You've seen the cover for Vanguard Collections. The character I speak of is Shaquilla.
She's the she's the technomancer,
She's
right?
the Technomancer, yep. And she is by far one of my favorite characters I have created. Um, not really even touching on the miraculous AU, which I might touch into that a little bit if you care to hear about some of the changes to the characters and the trauma and other kind of background things like that. That's on you if you want to hear it, Skull. But
Sure.
with Shaquilla, She is definitely the definition of a static character because she's not actually going to change throughout the story. She's going to be the same person from start to finish. It's just a matter of seeing it all unfold and seeing the two sides of herself. Because you're, like I said, she's going to be seen in both Sparrow and Arthur's stories. A little more prominently in Sparrow's in the beginning because she is part of the little vanguard group with Hans and all the others. So she is important enough, and even more so as the need for her powers arise, which comes because Sparrow ends up being the target of cyberbullying, which is immediately shut down by the good old Technomancer as she does her work and whatnot. Ah, num num num. But you see the side of her with Sparrow where she pretty much follows the rules to Sparrow's um, perspective, and does as she's supposed to within the groundwork of the association. But it's not until Arthur and even in Vanguard collections where you start to see the darker side of her, where everything is not so peachy keen, rosy, glassed, and whatnot. Shaquilla is just as damaged as Arthur. The only difference is she just kind of went off the deep end a lot sooner. She kind of fully embraced the whole monster label and let it become who she was. So, for some context into the world of the association, technomancers aren't incredibly common, but they are very valuable for their powers, especially since it's a modern world, and our modern world depends on technology. So you have these individuals who are able to infiltrate systems, control it from within, and so on and so forth. So they are very valuable. They're also kept on a tight, tight leash, essentially tightrope, because you don't want people like these going AWOL.
Yeah.
So they really are kept to a very strict way, but at the same time, they kind of slip up too. I think it kind of also shows how some people can become blind to how things change and almost ignore it. You find a lot of what I write is almost like social commentary.
Mhm.
At least in Vanguard, because holy hell, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, oh boy, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be juicy. But the way that they had been raised up to that point was that the parent that was actually the technomancer wouldn't actually raise them until the powers emerged, in which case it would be the other parent that would raise the child, pretty much on their own.
Makes sense.
Well, Shaquilla was one of those unique cases where her mother was abusive. How,
Oh no.
yes, her mother resented her, how she hated having Shaquilla, and how she should have said no to the association, that she should have said no to her husband and whatnot. She was not happy with her life and took it out on her daughter, very similar to what happened with Arthur, except for there was just no fighting. I mean, Shaquilla's father never really had the time and was always busy, kind of thing, because work. And Shaquilla's powers also emerged when she was, I think, about 6 years old, so she was fairly young when they emerged. So they were going to give her a few more years before they actually would have done anything with her. But the problem is, she figured stuff out on her own, much to their displeasure. And she took it upon herself to build a case against her mother and submit it to the police, essentially removing her mother from her life. And hoping to get praised for her abilities and her powers, she instead gets berated and condemned for it because, to their eyes, she got rid of the one person that was supposed to raise her. And her father didn't really do much to actually raise her, just kind of helped her with her powers, but that's about it. There wasn't much of a parental bond for Shaquilla her life.
Oh no.
And it created this sort of resentment for people like her parents, people who were abusive and manipulative. and just neglectful in general. She became something of a vigilante as she created her own little work where she purposely went after people who were this kind of way through obviously online, like not necessarily like internet trolls, but like people who were doing it maliciously, looking to
Hmm.
hurt bullies, cheaters, things like that, or pedophiles. Sorry, YouTube. But she was that type of person who would expose them and then get paid for it. And she did it very effectively, and it helped her hone her skills. And then the more she got into the association, because she was bound to because of what she started to see more of the injustices within her own community of technomancers. Now, these ones will probably speak to you a little more, Skull. And I'm going to speak to you only as their online personas, essentially, because they have their normal selves and they have the online versions of themselves, their work selves, essentially. So, the first one is Iris. And Iris is a gay man, a teen, well, more than anything. Probably about 17, around the same age as Arthur, who is a technomancer and is told that despite his orientation, he's going to have to marry a woman and have children with her. And he's not allowed to really be himself.
Because of his power?
Yet, because of his power. Because of his powers, he's expected to fall into line into the mold.
God, it sounds like nobility.
It essentially is basically nobility, but almost more twisted because of the implications of what will
Yikes.
happen. The other one is Gladiator. Gladiator is not initially one of Shaquila's friends or Demon's friends. He is essentially first reached out to by one of the antagonists in Sparrow's story to help with the bullying. Because once Demon gets involved, they need someone of a similar power level to combat Demon. And they get Gladiator. Gladiator is a trans man, or at least trans. Again, a teenager, about 16. And again, same situation there. He has to fall into line to what the association needs him to be because he's not allowed to be anything else. He's got to be what they need him to be. Or, well, in their eyes, she. Gladiator is female to male. And so, with both of these individuals, their online selves, their work selves, is who they want to be. So, in real life, Gladiator is physically a woman, but whenever they take on their work selves, they are a very masculine kind of person dressed in Roman gladiator armor and, just obviously a male. That's what they want to be. And they can be that online. Iris, on the other hand, very similar to Arthur, where he overindulges and being well flamboyant and whatnot. His online self is this very flamboyant man, like almost dressed in like a toga, like an open toga, with like his chest, a lot of his chest exposed. And it's very colorful, and it's like the rainbow, and his hair is long and very similar. It's very rainbow color. Like again, it's overindulging because he can't do that in his normal life. This is his only chance. And if he's gonna have this chance to indulge, he's gonna go overboard.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for teenagers.
Mm-hmm. The other one the other two I've written into Shaquila's little friend group are a pair of disabled individuals. I don't know much for Fee yet. I'm still kind of developing Fee along the lines, but was it Prisma? I think that's what they named her. I don't remember exactly. It might have been Prism, but it's one of the two. Prisma is essentially a blind girl, a blind teen, about 14 years old, a little bit younger than the actual group. But with her online self, she is actually able to see versus in real life when it's just, darkness. So whenever people see her like in her own little like domain, essentially, it's nothing but blinding light because it doesn't bother her versus other people who can't, or just like that can actually see.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this doesn't bother me, and they're like, well, can you turn it down? And that kind of thing, which that's fun little stuff. I'm not sure with Fee, but she's gonna end up being a very leaning more into that like whole sci-fi aspect and things like that. So again, Fee's a little underdeveloped because I haven't actually had a chance to kind of explore that just yet. But going back to Shaquille a little bit, seeing these like mainly like Gladiator and Iris are the big two. It really does create a sense of what she believes should be done, like that they shouldn't have to hide themselves, that they should be allowed to be themselves, even if it doesn't line up with what society wants, what the association wants. And it creates more of a righteousness in her, I guess is the best way to put it. That she's going to push for basically rebellion, for a coup. She is that kind of person. And it's all because her life experiences up to that point have pushed her to this. She has seen nothing but injustice in her life. And it has made her into this person where no one else is going to do it, but I have the power to do something. And I'm going to. And it makes her a very dangerous person, especially since she knows how to fly under the radar. So, and it's she's gonna be a fun character. She,
Oh boy.
like, what do you think of her so far from what I've described?
They both seem like really interesting characters.
That's what makes it fun. And then, hmm, excuse me, you do have some of the lesser side characters that still have sway in the story, but are ultimately important. Well, they are still important. Like you have Hans, who is the love interest to Arthur. Yes, the playboy does get with does get with Arthur in the end, but it's more not because of well, sex essentially, because that's it is a big part of being teenagers is like driving forward for that. But like again, I something I tend to forget a lot. But what ends up bringing them closer is not like a necessarily like shared interest, particularly in each other, that does grow in time, but it's more they latch on to each other because they are the same person. Just if things happen differently for them. So again, like Hans is someone with very similar powers to Arthur, just a more watered down version of it. And his powers, as well as Arthur's, emerged early in life. The only difference is Hans lost his mother due to sickness. His mother passed away from disease, which left him with his father. And his father did not like Hans and did not like the powers that Hans had. So when Hans tried using his powers on his father was quick to abandon him, leaving him to the system essentially to foster care.
Oh.
Yes. And this is also where you point out the nobility aspect. It's kind of where that little bit comes in because he had powers that came out when he was younger. He was basically put into a home almost within like a month of being into the system because they couldn't. Because when you really think about it, they can't have someone like Hans with powers and that young of an age as well, being 5 years old.
Yeah.
to
Left in a place where they can't be taught,
Yeah, like they
essentially.
need to be nurtured in their powers and like trained on how to properly use them. So he was quick to be put into a home with a parent that could help him control his powers and how to use them. So essentially, even though Hans does internalize the fact that he is a monster because of, again, you need to be careful what you say to people, especially kids, because
Yeah,
they will internalize what you say, especially the negative stuff.
totally.
Yes. And Hans does internalize that. And even though he's tried for so long, his entire life basically, for like more than a decade, he's never really been able to see himself any more than a monster. And he's kind of just accepted a certain philosophy that one of his mothers has, which is do what brings you joy. Other people may not like it, but that's on them. You should ultimately do what makes you happy first. Unless it's being like, a psycho, then, you need to have a talk. But Hans really, like, internalized that as well. So at this point, he just does what he wants that makes him happy, that can help push that pain away. That, where he doesn't have to feel the over empowering numbness of people talking down to him, saying he's nothing but trash, that he's just a monster, that he can't be capable of real emotions and things like that. Which
Alright.
immediately does come when you have someone who just like kind of plays on people's feelings and emotions just for a quick joy.
Oh no.
Well, I mean, think about it. He's just in it for sex, and a lot of the times when he interacts with people, it's because he wants to, you know, you
Yeah.
know. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not really one for meaningful connections unless he like feels it. He feels up for it, like almost drawn to the person. In which case, you had Milo and Kalanak, who he's developed something of a relationship, but it's not really like friendship. Same with Shaquille. Like Tallulah is probably the only one where he's actually developed a relationship with them, but that's more of like a, you know, it's not as deep as what you would expect a friendship to be. It's very surface level. So when it
Ah,
comes to Arthur, he's gonna latch on because they are very similar people. They both see each other as monsters. Well, they see themselves as monsters, and they just kind of gravitate towards each other. Because it tends to happen when you're like when you come across someone who is similar to you, you tend to gravitate towards them.
yes.
And when and especially when you're Hans, like who's very driven by certain aspects, and for him, he's driven by the fact that not only like he feels something is going on there with Arthur, like there could be something more, but he's also drawn to the voice because Arthur has one of the most beautiful singing voices because of his powers. I make that very clear while I was writing is that the reason why Arthur has such it's has um why his voice is considered so angelic and just the best of the best is because of his powers, which makes sense. So, and because of that, Hans is drawn to him. He's not affected by Arthur's powers, however, he's still drawn in, basically like a sailor to a siren. Or like Ariel and Eric. It's kind of funny. I'm just gonna go a slight little thing here, Skull. Um, when I initially describe Arthur and Sparrow, it's the first thing I just used to sum them up.
What?
Elsa and Anna.
Oh my god.
It's great. Well, because here's the thing, like Sparrow is so quick to attach to people. So she's so quick to open up, and she's very naive, very much like how Anna is. But then you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have Arthur, who is very avoidant. He doesn't get attached. He stays away from people. He sees himself as a monster, so he doesn't want to get too close because he's afraid of being hurt. Essentially, he is Elsa. And I was thinking about Arthur and Hans, and I'm like, this is a lot like Ariel and Eric. Where you have like Ariel with the most beautiful singing voice, and then Eric hearing it and just being like, "I love this woman for her voice and only her voice." Well,
Oh
she was
boy.
beautiful too. It's like essentially the same thing. It's kind of it's kind of funny when you think about it, though.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm like, what other Disney princesses can I work in here? Oh my gosh. Uh, all I need is Arthur to bust out into song randomly, uh, without meaning to, and then he'd really be a Disney princess. He'd be like Stolas.
Oh my god.
It's great. It's like no music, no nothing, just song. Let's go.
That's just Disney characters in a nutshell.
It is Disney characters in the show. That's what makes it fun, though. Like catchy ass songs, though.
I know.
It's like don't fight Disney. You're gonna lose. You always lose that fight.
Yeah.
But so that's why I've had like admittedly, despite how Hans is like given like the Playboy thing and everything, I've had some people express like concern, like why would you want to set the Playboy up with Arthur? It doesn't seem like a good match. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Wait, and you will see. It doesn't make sense now because of how they are currently, but they are both going to change.
I'm
Some other
excited.
characters, Kalanak is the one with the super strength and invincibility. He has some trauma, but he's learned to kind of like find his place in the association. So essentially, with
Hello.
Kalanak, what it was is that his super strength is at more, not quite a god tier, but a very high tier, that it makes him very dangerous, essentially, because he could easily kill someone without meaning to because of how strong he is. So when he was younger, and this is, I'll probably use him to introduce this concept, but it's collaring. And Kitty was the one to introduce me to this concept. So you can blame her. But anyway, what she described it as and what implanted the idea in me was that if someone were to get too rowdy or too dangerous, the association would put a collar around them that would suppress and mute their powers, basically make them a normal person to a degree. And that would have happened with Kalanek while he was younger, that he was too dangerous because he couldn't really control his strength. So they collared him to help kind of like teach him. And in a somewhat messed up way because it also muted his invulnerability, which also means he was able to get hurt. And for a kid who hadn't been hurt for, X amount of time, like that would have been a shock to his system, like pain and disease and everything. So in his character, he basically had to learn to become the gentle giant just so he wouldn't have to worry about having a collar put around his neck. That we wouldn't have to worry about hurting anyone. And that's going to be a big thing to his character. Milo is. I know I mentioned Milo before. He's a very. Oh, what is it? He's probably a static character along with Shaquilla, where she doesn't. He doesn't change as much. Again, like the older brother and whatnot. And Tallulah is probably the only other one that doesn't change either. And I know we touched on her a little bit last time too. So, Skull, what do you think of all that?
Sorry, I was talking to my roommate.
Great, he's back. But anyway, what do you think of the Vanguard characters? Hello?
Vanguard, you say?
Yes, thank you, Ruthless. I can put that one on. Thank goodness
Alright,
I've got someone else here.
I'm
Oh,
back.
Alright.
Sorry. He was telling me about some stuff and then asked if I wanted my door shut, and I said,
Yes, please. But we were just sharing characters. Skull had already talked about his little Delta. I
yes.
had shared a little bit. Mainly, the only one from Dungeons and Dragons I shared Ruthless was Aki, because that's what Skull cared about the most, was Aki.
that's fair.
Yes. And then I got into the Vanguard characters a little bit, which unfortunately you weren't here for, because you probably would have had a field day with that.
I haven't actually read all of it, but I was like read enough that it was like I like both Sparrow. I like both Sparrow and Arthur. Though I remember it was like chapter 4, I think.
Okay. Oh, so you would have gotten. I don't think chapter 4 was quite the chapter, but you would have gotten close to when. No, wait. You would have read it where Arthur's mother abandoned him, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You would have seen that then. Well, you missed the whole thing with because I explained to Skull and the audience about the type of characters that they were and what, well, at least what went into Arthur. I didn't really talk on talked on what inspired Han's Skull, but I was initially kind of like going through YouTube videos and things like that, and I came across a fan animation of Hell of a Boss by I think Dark Cow, uh, Crow or something like that. I don't remember what exactly their username is. But they made a little fan animation of Stolas and Blitz dancing to Sway. And I remember sitting here like, it'd be a fun idea to create like a foil to Arthur. And that's how Hans was created. Oh, fun stuff there. But Ruthless, like I said to Skull earlier, I can get into the miraculous rewrite for the characters if you guys are interested. Skull said
Okay,
sure
I will
earlier,
admit.
but
I will admit. It is on the last of my prior
priorities.
priorities of the reading list. I will admit.
Well,
I will admit this.
we're not
It's
here to
kind of the
like talk
last. It's
about
not.
reading lists necessarily. We're just here to talk about the characters within it.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely say it's not like the whole. I'm not saying that it's bad or anything, but it's just like it's miraculous, and I have such a hate boner against that show. It's already like on the list of like, mm,
Well, again, that's actually what inspired Vanguard in the first place was my hatred
yeah,
of the miraculous. But then that also manifested in me wanting to rewrite the show because you know what they say: if you
yeah.
think you can do better, do it yourself. And I'm like, okay, bet.
I mean, I think a lot of people can do better than that or that heaping pile of shit.
Yeah, that's true. But if you guys are interested, I can get into the um, what is it? Like the rewrite to the characters and what changed and what goes into almost like how they think now. Because unfortunately, you missed the whole Vanguard thing, and I'm not really gonna go back into that because people don't really want to hear information regurgitated a lot.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably like you said, this probably isn't the best day for you to hop into the recording. But I don't know if at any point you want to talk about characters you've developed, Ruthless, you can. I know with some of the episodes you said you wouldn't really be feeling up to it, and I don't know how you're feeling today. So just throwing that out there.
I'm probably gonna be a little bit more tired, but I will still share some. Let me get the few of the notes of mine, and also one of my characters I've actually been working on for a while. Not complete, but well, like the arc is not like story arc is not like complete, but it's still like character though. You know.
Well, that's all that really matters right now is just like what the characters are like, the development you've gotten into them, and like what inspired their everything and whatnot.
Yeah. So I would say is one of my it's actually the one thing I've been just working on for a while of like a whole outline for a comic. But again, this is not I haven't not drawn like I haven't finished with the drawings yet of it. So don't expect me to post like some art because I don't have it concretely finished, and also I'd much rather get like a drawing tablet to do it.
Okay.
So yeah, and So this is the main character is pretty much a well. There's two characters in this. One is pretty much a very optimistic character who's been in a village that is very recluse and barely anybody knows it even exists. And he, of all people, were curious about the outside world and hear a lot of stories and how it's just there's a mystical city that is just has like the and the city from what he interpreted almost like New York City to like anyone who is not from New York
Okay.
because like that city to many other people I hear from like people who are not knows under or don't understand New York City think it's like a magical city and I was just speaking that from people who are definitely not don't understand New York City or
Right.
New York at all and using that kind of concept but he goes into like the whole place where it's like that whole the Platinum City. I think it's called Platinum City.
Platinum City. Okay.
And he had a really rude like reality check. And he realized this whole city is just like a really just a haven of a lot of criminals, a haven of like just a not okay place to be at.
Okay.
And and there's also a mixture of aspects of I remember. Well, not remember, but looking through my resume notes. Come on. Fuck. No. Google. Don't. God damn it, my internet's crapping on me.
Ah, yeah, I love it when that happens, right?
Yeah.
All right. Oh. I don't know where I put my pencil. And I'm a little upset now. Ah, there it is. Never mind.
Dang. Hey, my internet is crapping on me. And it is not working with me at all.
Oh, that's not good.
However, I have a backup character that I could talk about. Haha.
All right. See,
I
also
could use
with this is
NPC.
why we keep our notes in notebooks so we don't trust the internet.
Listen, I'm a fucking lazy guy who literally like my handwriting is like chicken scratch. Okay, I can't even read my own like my own handwriting. Like my handwriting is like pretty much chicken scratch, and like speaks in like Naruto.
Okay.
Figure of speech, but you get what I'm saying.
No, yeah.
So I actually will use NPC. Haha. That I have on hand. So with that, would lead way into like one of the NPCs that all my players just find is so funny. But he's just very simple, like really simple concept. So he's like this dragon, right? That was kind of so he was captured by like a a group of hunters, and the party did like kill the hunters, but they found like this whole cage with this dragon who would literally just spew out, just be like just vulgar as shit.
Okay.
And he's just like this really young wormling that he was taken away from his parents from a young age, and his parents were pretty nice people, like really good people. It's just the egg was just taken from the dead from by the hunters, and the hunters, the party just got the dragon out of there and killing the hunters because they were holding it. a really like a mob boss that they were trying to go after
Okay.
because they were the that they're running after.
All right.
And this dragon is he has a very like so imagine his personality like fucking toothless, but more he has more of like a comedic energy of like he just says like the most hilarious lines. Like one line he literally said he's like to I think it was like the orc. He's like, man, man, you the green slaver, like the green slave master is gonna try to goddamn get more Roman slaves. Or what? I'm really just tired. I vividly remember shit, but I remember. Fuck. Where's my notes? No, my other notes in my Discord.
I'm sorry, but
Nah,
this is kind of funny.
no.
Oh
I've
my
tried
gosh.
to make a backup notes.
I think you
It
need to make a backup of a backup. No offense, buddy.
yeah, it is, and I don't care personally.
I know, that's kind of why I say it too. We speak the truth, and only the truth, while also being assholes.
I think everyone is asshole
Yeah.
in their own way. Come on. Hold up. God fucking damn it.
This is great.
I'll be back in a bit.
Wait, what? No. Uh. Oh, for fuck's sake. No, Danny. Uh. Um. Oh. Son of a bitch.
Oh,
Alright.
the notes is this notes is like totally different from a
Go on.
but his ruthless dragon has like a kind of like a backstory of pretty much imagine him just being stripped away from his health and then he's kind of more rough, have like the rough eye around the edges, but when he does trust someone eventually, like when someone is like actually being somewhat trustful and also just give him his hoard and give him like decent amount of food, he'd be like, yeah, I'll trust you a little bit, but make sure that you don't pull any like weird bullshit scale like help like don't be a fucking scaly.
Alright.
It's that simple. Like he's kind of really simple character. Like he's a really simple character that I had to like literally improv most of that because I did not expect them to like rescue the fucking dragon. At most, I was not expecting them to like um what's his name save him. So I was like, yeah, I'll make her like literally make, and they have him as like a guard dog, pretty much like a dark guard dog that just does a bunch of quips
Okay.
for the ship.
Eh,
Welcome back.
hello.
Brain dead, ruthless right now, very brain dead
Very
and
brain
Oh,
exhausted.
dead.
I was gonna say I am a confusion.
Oh, he's telling me about some like his main character until his internet crapped out on him and wouldn't load, and then started talking about an NPC, and then he lost the notes for that, and he's trying to sit here and remember stuff even though he's exhausted.
Oh. Oof.
You know, the usual.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel
Listen, you
that.
get to watch me suffer, so
Honestly,
yeah.
I'd be right there with you in the brain dead bucket, but I have caffeine.
Yeah, the one difference there, eh?
That's like the one
Yeah.
step off from me being just dead.
Come on.
To be honest, I'm debating on drinking some grabbing some of the coffee and then just drink some coffee in the night, but I'm like, nah, like you really shouldn't. I really should try to
You
go to
shouldn't do
sleep early.
that.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to get some sleep there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely get some sleep. But Skull, I finished talking about Vanguard, so the next question is if you guys want to hear about the changes to the miraculous characters, I can go into
Yes.
that. You do?
Might as well.
Yes.
Even though I have a hate boner for this series, but might as well.
You know what? Skull wants to hear it, and that kind of surprises me, so let's get into it, I guess, right? just out of curiosity, like have you been curious about this for a while, Skull, or like what's going on?
Yes.
You have. All
Yes.
right. Well,
I just haven't had the focus to read lately.
oh, it's a fucking mood. Don't worry,
As a
I'm in the same boat as you, Skull. So I feel you there. There's a lot of things I've wanted to read, but I just can't focus enough to actually read, or I've been just busy writing my own shit, and even then, you know. So I think I might as well start with this one because Ruthless's own extreme hatred for this character, Marinette. And I think it's quite easy to see what she is in the show. Very much a teenager, immature, obsessive, a little stalkery, and so on and so forth. And before I get any further, I want to make this clear as to how I'm operating with this rewrite. Some of the events from the show I am using as the base for past experiences, while also writing in new experiences to add more to what I want for the characters, making them more of superheroes or villains and so on and so forth. So, with Marinette, she's I would almost probably like not one of the most dynamic of characters. She almost falls more into the static category, but she does change even if it is slightly. There's probably a word for what type of character that is. But anyway, she's still very much an artist, the ambitions to be a designer. The big difference is she's somewhat more of a dreamer, but also grounded in reality as well. And the whole obsessiveness I did write out because, quite frankly, I find that very troublesome when it comes to teenagers, and I don't really want to be not necessarily promoting it, but writing it.
it's really painful. I will have to say, like, it's so painful to even just read it and watch it to the point where I'm like, ah.
It works in anime.
It only works on anime because it's anime. But like, it's still painful though in anime though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little more tolerable in anime is the only thing. It's almost like you expect it.
Yeah.
But essentially, I changed that aspect of her personality where she's not obsessive. However, she did still experience that same like episode where she did obsessively believe that Adrian loved her, even though they had never actually met. Kind of like you know how like probably a lot more in our more modern society, how we have people who believe this like celebrity or person of influence knows them and
Oh.
likes them. Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh.
So that is what Marinette had gone through when she was 13, 14 towards Adrian. And it being Alia that shook her from that dream and brought her back to reality. However, that is a bit of a concern to her because she is afraid she will slip back into those patterns. It is brief, admittedly, for how I could have done it, but at the same time, I didn't want to draw it out. Especially since in my rewrites, Marinette still has her friend group. She has people there to help her. So it would be something she would be pushed to not necessarily overcome sooner, but just try and push past it essentially.
Yeah.
But she overall is the same person, just more grounded in reality in terms of the type of person that she is. She's still a dreamer, she's still an artist. And you know how artists can be. We're both perceptive and the most oblivious people you will ever meet.
Sounds about right.
I could probably point out like so many little things, but the one thing you want me to point out, I won't notice. And it's the most obvious thing. So again, like we're some of the most perceptive people when it comes to just our worlds and whatnot, and seeing the details and reactions and movements and things like that. But when it comes to the most obvious stuff, it just kind of slips right past us. And that's kind of what I am doing a little more for Marinette, where she's still that dreamer, she's that artist type. And you know, a lot of artists are typically dreamers because of the personalities.
Yeah.
Yes. me and Skull, we should know this.
Yeah, definitely.
And you see those moments like she will slip into daydreams, she'll kind of stop listening as she kind of dives into her own fantasies and things like that. It kind of as like she's getting inspired and things like that. But she also knows when there's limits. She knows when she doesn't want to dream so much, where she wants to try and pull it back, where she needs to be careful. And along those lines. But she still has fun, even if it's a bit restrained because of her own fears. It makes her fun to write.
Makes sense.
She's not the most interesting character because again, like she doesn't really have that much trauma packed into her, and I'm sorry, but trauma makes people interesting.
Yeah.
Kill me if you want for saying that, but like I'm sorry, it's true. Like the more traumatized a person is, the more interesting it is to read their struggles. That's why Adrian's a lot more interesting still. Like my goal wasn't really necessarily to make Marinette more interesting, but to make her more real, more relatable. And to those who do suffer from obsessive love and things like that and do see themselves in Marinette, please seek help. That's all I gotta say. I'm sorry, but like it's not healthy. And I understand she's a teenager, she's a child, essentially. But even that, it doesn't matter what age you are, that's not healthy.
Not healthy, and to be honest, kind of toxic.
It's extremely toxic. So, like, if you see those traits of yourself, of like of Marinette in yourself, that's not good. You need to work on that. Those are not healthy. Those are very toxic. Moving on. So, Adrian was probably one of the most conflicting characters in the show because on one hand he's supposed to be like this distressing dude essentially. It's the male version of damsel in distress, where he's stuck in his house all day. He can't do anything. He can't have any friends. He's got a very controlling father and things like that. But the problem is in the show, it's very inconsistent because you see Adrian is able to go out. He's allowed to have friends. He's allowed to go to school. He's allowed to do these things he shouldn't be allowed to do. And yet he still whines and complains when his father just locks him up in the house like he's grounded. And I'm just like, but you get to do all these other things. And your father's going to change his mind anyway. So, like, and I understand, like, as a teenager, you don't expect them to really change their mind. And he's gone through a lot because, like, he lost his mother. They don't know what happened to her in the show and so on and so forth. And his father is supposed to be someone who's very controlling, but also an absent father who doesn't really necessarily care, but does care. Like, Gabriel's confusing. I'm just going to say that right now. So, both Adrian and Gabriel had a touch up, as well as Emily. So Emily in my version is dead. She died. Literally. No broken peacock miraculous, no none of that. She was never a holder in my version. She died of disease. I'm not sure which one yet. It doesn't matter. Moving on from that. And this happened when Adrian was 10. As a result, his father kicked out the one maternal figure in his life, which was Natalie. Not his actual mother, but Natalie. So he lost her for 3 years of his life. It wasn't until his father pushed him into modeling because, he was old enough at that point in his father's eye. Essentially kept him trapped in the house, no friends, no school, homeschooled, tutored, and everything, and had to do all his photo shoots from the house. So he's essentially literally trapped in his own house. And it's not until the events where I begin my story that things begin to change and he actually gets to experience the world to a lesser degree. But the one difference is, I think, Ruthless, you kind of saw this in the show where, like, even though Chat Noir still feels like Adrian, or not feel, it feels like the real himself, he still acts like himself as Adrian at times, at least when he's not around his father and Natalie. Wouldn't you say you've seen this, Ruthless? He's muted.
Yep.
Oh
Mhm.
gosh. But
Just lag.
I mean, but you've seen it, right? Where, like,
Yeah.
even though Chat Noir is supposed to be his real self, he still acts like his real self when he's around his friends. Which, again, that makes sense because that's how teens usually are. They don't really act like themselves around their parents because one reason or another, and they'll usually act like their real selves around their friends. But I changed that up a little bit more. Probably aligned more like what you'd see in for a Batman kind of character, where
Yeah.
who they are as a civilian isn't actually who they are, but rather their hero self is what they are. I still I have like a little comic strip I found on Pinterest, Ruthless, where it was Wonder Woman using, what was it? It was like a lasso of truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where she uses that and, has like Batman and Superman hold it and they reveal to each other who each other are. And you have Wonder Woman and Superman who are very honest and straightforward about who their civilian forms are. But then with Batman, it's I'm Batman. That's who he is. It's not Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne. He's Batman.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I'm doing with Chat Noir, is that he's not Adrian, he's Chat Noir. Because the
Yeah.
boy of Adrian does not actually exist. He's a doll, he's a toy, he's a prop. He is something used to further a brand of a man who lost his other model. He is a replacement. And that's all he is. Yes. And he add more on top of it, Skull, because that's not the only thing, is he's been trapped in this house all his life. He knows very little of the outside world. He does not know how to properly, feel emotions, or like what the emotions are he's supposed to be feeling. That is a big problem when it comes to Ladybug Marinette, because he doesn't know how he's supposed to feel. He doesn't know what these are, and he doesn't really know how to process them either, because Daddy likes to just shut him out. And doesn't really like explain things to him. It's like, you are this, you do as I say, now shut up.
This boy needs a hug, a cookie, and some therapy, and his dad needs to be beaten aggressively with a stick.
You're having fun now, right now, aren't you, Skull?
What?
It's like this is quite a trip listening to all this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Listening to all the trauma I can pack into these characters.
Yeah.
Well, then it gets even better because then you got Natalie. Natalie's just as
Oh.
bad. Oh my gosh. So, and how Natalie kind of works into the whole dynamic. So, I know in the show you have the whole like Gabe Nat thing, and I understand it has their shippers and so on and so forth, but I'm not really a fan of the ship. Like, I understand it, trust me. I was with you guys around like season 2, maybe a little bit in season 3, but yeah, no, not anymore. I'm just like, it's toxic, and that's what makes it great. But I'm just like, I don't want it to be canon. I like the toxicity that is going on here, and I want it to just be like a slap to the face to Gabriel later down the line. But Natalie, I'd say, also doesn't have that much development. We don't know much about her, so I made something for her. And I know Kitty likes what I did because it gives Adrian someone to relate to kind of like see themselves in. as a matter of speaking, but also again, like she is a maternal figure to him more than his actual mother was, because even as a child, his parents did not pay any attention to him. So, this is going to probably be the most interesting version of Adrian you might have heard so far, Skull. And there's probably other more interesting versions because there are far more creative people out there when it comes to fan fiction. But essentially, his parents did not really care for him. They loved each other more than they loved him. And Emily used her friendship with Natalie. Really, it was just her using Natalie in the end, where she basically trapped Natalie in the house with Adrian just to be a permanent babysitter. So that way she didn't have to worry about raising her son, but also still get mad when Adrian would refer to Natalie as his mother. And be quick.
Okay, first of all, fuck you.
Wait, it gets better than going to Natalie and being the one to emotionally and mentally abuse her and reminding her, like, you will never be his mother and you must never be close to him. He is just someone you need to babysit. He is nothing more than that. And basically, just
Jesus.
like, yes, beating that kind of mentality into Natalie's head. And Natalie, of course, would technically agree because she's not his mother. His mother is still well and alive. Until, well, obviously she was. That's a whole nother story. Um, but no, yeah, like Natalie does ends up getting trapped in that house just as much as Adrian. And because of Emily and then later Gabriel, she is used and manipulated by them to watch over Adrian, who does indeed see Natalie as a motherly figure. Even though she wasn't able to be loving like a mother ideally should. Obviously, there's different ways of showing love and so on and so forth. He still does see her as his mother because everything he learned was from her. And how he carries himself is the way she'd carry herself. Like, basically, yes, she is his mother because she raised him. It's as simple as like your mother, your blood mother is what gives birth to you, but the mother that raises you is technically your real mother.
Yeah.
It's something to remember. Like blood is not everything. I think more than anything, blood in the end is just trash. In all honesty, I'll be the first to say it. Blood ultimately means nothing unless you have a good bond with your family, and even then, it doesn't really solidify anything. Again, it's the bonds that ground us. But Natalie, as I said, had a very similar upbringing to Adrian, except for Gabriel does not really expect much of Adrian, except for you're my new model. You're nothing more than that. Now just sit there and look nice. Natalie, on the other
Yeah.
hand, probably would have had an upbringing similar to you and I, Skull. Very strict parents, had to fall into line of the mold, couldn't be anything else except for what their parents wanted them to be. And in Natalie's case, her parents wanted her to become a politician, and thus had her trained and schooled in everything up to a certain point. Because Natalie was all set to go to university, get her degree, and then eventually marry the man that was picked for her by her parents. But then something changed. And do you want to know what changed, Skull?
What?
She fell in love. But not with just any
Oh.
person. She fell in love with Emily. In my version, Natalie is gay. And Natalie fell in love with Emily Agreste. And essentially, how did I put it? When I was writing the chapter, Natalie described it as she burned down her world in the pursuit of someone who she could never win their love. Because a woman could never win her heart. So essentially, probably one of the most tragic things that could happen to someone who is like lesbian or gay is falling for a straight person, which is essentially what happened to her. She fell for someone who would never be able to return her affections. And that person instead manipulated and twisted those affections. So you can see the trauma that's already packed into this family, can't you?
Yeah.
The only saving grace was the peacock Kwame, which chose Natalie. And that he had been with her for 10 years. So since Adrian was 6 or 7, around that age, that's how long Dusu, the peacock Kwame, has been with Natalie. Sitting there, like, trying, essentially being her therapist, essentially. Being the one to always be around whenever she's upset, to talk to her, help her through her emotions and feelings and thoughts and whatnot. Dusu was essentially that best friend we all need in our lives. That's like the one saving grace for Natalie. Gabriel is just a control freak. Everything we all know how control freaks can be. Like, everything has to go their way. One little thing slips out of line, they freak the fuck out.
He needs to be aggressively beaten with a stick.
He does. Let's be fair. And in my version, he is also unhinged because he is still going for the I want to resurrect my dead wife, but he's willing to go to much further lengths. Because we see in the show, he's very comical. He's more of a gag than an actual threat. But in my version, he still does create minions for him, for like his purposes, but it's not really directly to get the miraculous right off the bat. He's drawing them all out at first because they're not all inherently good, and they are inherently tools. Tools to be used as the holders see fit. There's no good or evil here. It's just gray. And that's ultimately what it is. So he's creating monsters to kill just to draw out the Kwames. And he did that first and foremost with creation and destruction, the first two that he needed to actually activate. Because then once they come out, all the others start coming, which makes it a lot more fun.
I see.
Yes, I mean, his first monster is still Stoneheart, which does kill people. Then you have Stormy Weather, which creates an apocalyptic storm. Oh, and don't forget Belladonna Nightshade, or just Nightshade, I call her, that used poison gas to cripple her enemies, to which she impaled and drained the very life until they were nothing but a mummified corpse. Let's see. The one that probably didn't do any killing was Dragon, because it was just a kid. But nonetheless, like, these are still like essentially monsters to kill to lure out these kind of people, the Kwames. And that's what makes it fun, because it's far darker. It is more traumatic. Oh, Skull, you wouldn't like the chapter I wrote recently that just traumatized Chat Noir. You'd probably be upset with me. Ruthless, do you want to hear about it?
Sure.
Okay, so basically, I went forward with the Luca getting akumatized into copycat, essentially, because the reason for his akumatization is because he wants to protect Julika, and he's worried that he won't be able to, and he feels like if he could, well, he's told that, like, why don't you like get your hands on one of the miraculous, like, why not try and go for the black cat one and prove you're the better of the two of you, that you're a better cat than he is, and you can protect your sister using one of the greater Kwame powers. And it works because he does get it to kumatize. He is stronger than Julika and ends up taking her out of the fight rather momentarily, because she does get back and goes after him. And it's not until he goes to fight Ladybug and Cat Noir that he gets an upper hand. He gets Ladybug out of the fight, and Cat, being very not really underwhelmed, not prepared, like underprepared for this kind of fight against a ruthless opponent one-on-one, that he ends up abandoning the fight to go check on Ladybug because he's worried about her because of what happened. Because she was thrown basically into the base of the Eiffel Tower, so she would have hit the metal of the tower at like a very high speed, so she would have been injured essentially. And then in abandoning the fight, Luca grabs Cat by the throat, gives him the option to hand over the cat ring, and when he refuses, Luca is ready to kill Cat Noir because his neck is exposed. So Luca would have a very easy opening to kill Cat. The only thing that stops him is because Mayura had told Shat, and he had seen this, where the claws of their outfits could be sharpened into like talons, claws, like true claws that could shred through skin. And he's not very well aware how strong he actually is when it comes to normal people, because even though Luca would technically have the powers of the Black Cat, he doesn't have the Black Cat suit. So when Cat does go to just like scratch him, he doesn't realize what he's doing, and he cuts through the suit, the skin, and the muscle of Luca's arm. Shreds the tendons and nerves and everything, almost to the bone. So let's just say Chat Noir is a bit traumatized after the last chapter I wrote.
Oh no.
I literally ended it where Julika took Luca home after they saved him, and Shat kind of comes out of like his little mini catatonic episode where he's just like staring at his own claws as he's realizing what he just did. Where he breaks down in tears and then just hugs Ladybug and just cries. That's literally how I ended it.
Oh
Yes. Drama!
Yep.
This is probably
Yes.
like. I know this is what Dandy had mentioned, but like. You'd probably like to see this stuff too, Ruthless. Like, actual life or death situations, actual consequences, and, reactions to, like, proper reactions to these kind of things. Like, that is a very traumatic experience. And again, it's like the characters that drive it forward, because this is something he was not prepared to do. It was something he had no knowledge of how strong he was and the real damage he could do. So when he actually saw it with his own eyes after committing the act, he was horrified. So the little thing there, I just wanted to share that because I was actually quite proud of that, and no one can quite read that yet because I don't have my beta reader up to that point. It's been a struggle getting her to read even just the stuff I have released because her internet's trash. So, no, yeah, I wanted to share that because I was quite happy with that. Yes, I can't believe I said that. Writing trauma is fun. All right, shoot me, but it's fun. I'm gonna stand by that statement too. Uh, but a lot of the characters, going off from that, a lot of the characters don't really change too much. Alia's still the same. She's still pushy. She's that type of friend who always knows what's going on before you know what's going on. And it's not because people just tell her things. It's because she just knows these things. It's the whole sixth sense intuition kind of thing. More playing into that. So I feel like Alia would have a really good sixth sense.
Probably.
Oh yeah, I mean she gives that feel. Julika, I made her more like how she was in season 1, where she's still quiet and reserved around other people, but when she's around her friends, she's far more open and talkative. Well, not really talkative, but like talks a little more than usual. How about that? Luca, I'm trying to find a happy ground for Luca because right now I just finished his whole being affected by the butterfly's powers, so I actually have to create a character for him now that isn't just angry boy. But it's probably still gonna be very similar in the show where he's very calm, reserved, takes things in stride kind of thing. You know, your classic just chill, bro kind of person. We all know one.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those.
I don't know one. I totally don't know one.
Yeah, sure we don't. Let's see. I know Nino was one that was changed quite a bit, just because I was initially gonna have him akumatized into something a little more interesting. But then I go against that. So this is something that is traumatic for anyone, no matter their age, but even more so for a kid, obviously. But playing into the fact that Paris is a big city, is a metropolis, you're going to have a whole bunch of types of people. You're going to have you're also going to have quite a bit of crime as well. So, because again, it's a big city, you're going to have that no matter what. So, playing into that, Nino, I had go through a traumatic experience with prior the events that start the the rewrite, where he was caught in a mugging, and his mother was killed in front of him. And the only way he got away or survived the encounter is because the police started to show up, or at least a police drive-by, essentially.
Wow, the police is effective.
I know, right? It's pure coincidence too.
So makes so much sense.
I know,
It's
it's like
always something that
they
makes.
never intentionally be there. It's just all by accident. That's all everything ever is. At least when it comes to cops. They just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Or if you're speeding in the wrong place at the wrong time, because then you get pulled over and you're screwed. So, no, yeah. So that was a very traumatic experience, and it's kind of defined him, and it's really warped his perception that he feels like he can't really protect the people that he loves because he loved his mother very dearly, but he lost her. He couldn't keep her safe. He, lost her in the end. He was afraid he was going to lose the other people in his life, so he broke up with Alia to keep her more at a distance so he wouldn't lose her, but still keep her close enough to where she was still in his life, kind of thing. Like that dick move, essentially.
Mm.
And then he does end up getting affected by the butterfly's powers, but it comes to a head whenever Alia, you're good, tells him that she doesn't want him in her life anymore, and that breaks him. And he's given an opportunity to, I wouldn't say become better, essentially, because he's already at that point where he can be transformed. But it's more where he becomes more of a vigilante, I guess is the best way to say it. He gets the powers of the turtle Kwame, which is that of protection. So he has the ability to protect the people he cares about, but also himself, because again, you need to be able to protect yourself too. You can't just throw yourself into harm's way without any regard for yourself. That is just reckless and awful and very inconsiderate. Which is what clashes with Alia, because Alia is very ready to do that kind of stuff. She's going to disregard her own safety for the sake of others, whereas Nino won't be doing that. So it creates a fun little clash. But regardless, he's going to become something of this vigilante type character who doesn't necessarily work with the group at all times, but more goes off and does his own thing and his own fight for justice, essentially. More of a hero for the people that doesn't really fight the supernatural monsters, but like the regular monsters, like you would find in dark alleys and things like that in the real world. Which, what do you think of that, Ruthless? As I try and get one of you to talk, because I know Skull's not here. Anyway, let's see. So there was Julika, Luca, Alia, Nino. Went over Adrian and his messed up fit. Well, and go over Emily. Amelia. I hate that so fucking much, and I'm gonna say that right now. Amelia and Felix. Felix is going to take a lot of work, but he's going to be a dangerous person. Very dangerous. He's gonna be very dangerous and very angry, and it's gonna be fun. and probably one of the more difficult characters to write. Amelia is going to be interesting. I don't want to share too much, but it's bad. It's very bad for her. The other one, let's see. Max hasn't changed. Kim hasn't changed. The only one that's gotten a little more development is probably Alex. Going from something of a skater girl to just rebellion. Ah, for fuck's sake. Ruthless, are you here? Speak.
I,
Alright.
I'm here. It's just I'm
Okay.
dealing with stuff.
I know, just I don't really want to talk too much without Skull here, because the reason why I'm talking about this is for Skull, and I'm just like, I don't want to just sit here in silence either, because that just feels awkward. I'm sorry, it really does.
I mean, it's very fair. So, yeah, the characters are interesting. I will definitely say the characters are interesting. I'm more incentivized in reading it,
Hearing what the
but
characters are like.
yeah, just to see how it just see it a little bit more.
Well,
But
while we wait for Skull, I'll be at least honest with you in this regard. So, it's not as polished as Vanguard. Vanguard, I'm pretty sure you saw the quality in Vanguard and
mhm,
what I was able to do with it. So the big difference I find myself, and you're gonna run into this problem anyway when it comes to the amount of characters. But I'm working with a lot more characters with Miraculous than I am with Vanguard. Now, Melissa Kitty said she has enjoyed what I've been doing so far and that she believes I am handling the characters well. Now, obviously, someone else will probably say something very different, which fair. I will say that. But I'm also working with a lot more characters and perspectives. And on top of that, not all of them are going to be obviously main characters. Because, like, you know how Marinette is pretty much the main character of the show itself.
mhm.
She is one of many main characters. Because I think you're ready to hear this, Ruthless. You're ready to hear how many chapters I've actually written of this thing.
But how many?
So on Wattpad and even DeviantArt, that's where I've posted this at this point. I have written. I have published 23 parts, which is 22 chapters and a prologue. However, let me let me pull up my my files here. Do you want to take a guess at how many I've written so far?
25.
I have written 31 chapters with 1, 2, 3, 4 in the works right now.
Yeah, it sounds. I had a feeling that like I was underballing with that one.
Yeah, mostly because I'm doing my best to give the important characters their development, which are pretty much people who will again become part of the team because you need to give that development. I think you can agree on that. When it comes to like superhero stuff, like you have to really develop the other
Yeah,
characters too, and not just throw them in. Do we want to remember
yeah,
Sabrina's outfit? Remember when I shared the dog with you guys yesterday?
yeah.
Yeah. Trying to avoid stuff like that. So, just trying to give them the development they need. It's gonna feel a little fast because my perception of it is a little warped because I forget not a lot of time has passed. In all honesty, of all the 32 chapters I've written, take a guess at how much time's actually passed.
3 months,
No, actually, no. You want
a
to know?
year.
No. No, that's way too much. 3 weeks.
Oh, that's not too terrible.
I know, but like, in terms like with Vanguard, because again, it's less characters. I'm only dealing with 2 characters in Vanguard. I can control it a little bit easier, and not to mention, it's not as I guess I wouldn't say action packed, but oh, there's a word for it. I think it's
A big
just
path.
yeah. I mean, I think what it is that with the miraculous characters, there's a lot more going on in their lives, and with so many of them too. Because I'm pretty sure if this was just me writing Marinette and Adrian, I'd be able to do not necessarily more time jumps essentially, but just space it out a little bit more in terms of time. But because I'm going into all the characters and giving them the development that they need, because they're all essentially main characters. It's kind of like making like one of the DC shows based on one person. Not really one person, based on like a group, but focusing on one person in particular during the entire time.
So, correctly writing the Titan show. Got it.
Essentially. Which Titan show?
The current one that's currently airing is a heaping pile of trash.
Wait,
It is not good.
I
But
don't know this one.
it was like so it was on CW.
That's probably why I don't know it then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of the fans would agree with me. Like, it's a really bad show, but enjoyable. It's like the type of trash that is just like, you know what? I want more of it. It's that type of bad.
I'm not gonna lie, that's basically the Miraculous fandom. They're ruthless.
Yeah, but like, it's not painful though.
Yeah, it became painful, and then like the fans that were there since the beginning got upset. So you know how that is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because again, like me and my friend, we were 19 when the show initially came out, and though we were a little old for the demographic, we were still kind of in it because it was still directed towards teens, and we were still teens at the time, technically. We were legally adults, but like we were still mentally teenagers.
I'm not sure about that part.
Okay,
Like,
look.
full mental, like, maybe like young adult, like young. I have like a category of like young adult and like teen because there's so much a difference.
I don't know. I don't feel like you really hit young adults till you're like in your early 20s, to be quite honest. And that depends on the person, because then you got the frat people who never actually grow up until they're like in their late 20s, and you're like, oh shit.
Oh, those people. Oh god, those people.
So like, you know what I mean, right? So it depends on the person, really. But like, I don't know. I feel like you don't really hit young adult till you're in your 20s, but that's just me.
Yeah, I can see it.
Like,
At the same time.
well, I don't know, because like some people can still be incredibly petty. You still got the hormones raging. It's nothing really starts balancing until you're really in your 20s. I'm just saying that now.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Well, it's because it is. I've had the joy of living it. Never gets easier. Eventually, it does. That's a lie. But no, yeah. So again, this probably could have been a lot worse in terms of how many chapters I've written. But like, oh my gosh, Ruthless, it's insane. I still feel like it's a lot, but again, it's because I'm working with more characters. I probably could have kept the scale small, but like, come on. I think you and I can both agree it's fun when you have a whole bunch of different superpowers and superheroes and things like that.
Yeah, and also like sometimes the powers sometimes makes some things more interesting. You know.
It definitely does. And like, you get different threats and things like that. You know what? Like, the one thing I will say is I don't really plan to draw this out too long. Because I do plan on like maybe the timeline being like a year, like they go up to a year until the big battle, because I know what that's called. I know what that's gonna be like. It's just a matter of everything in between. Because again, this is also about the characters too, not just their fight against Papillon. I'm not calling him Hawkmoth in mine. He is Papillon.
Oh, you're not doing Cockmoth, man. You're so Frenchy. I was like,
Well,
Connor.
Hawkmoth as a villain name sounds like some nerdy high school student who tried to adopt an evil persona.
it kind of is, yeah.
Like, you know how there's like the stereotypical like edgy character or whatever, and then they give themselves like the really edgy name.
Oh yes, I am
That's what it
Black
sounds.
Shadow 27. 6911.
I am the bringer of death.
I'm so glad that this is what I got to come back to.
You're welcome. Well, I paused explaining the characters for a little bit, Skull, so you could come back because I was explaining this for you. So.
Okay.
And remember, my username is crackpipe67.
Oh dear lord.
Oh god, we're gonna get in trouble with YouTube.
Ah, that's alright. If we haven't gotten in trouble yet, then we'll be fine. But
I'm pretty sure YouTube's perfectly fine, especially with certain YouTube channels.
it's like it's alright. We might get age restricted, but it's fine.
Not like we're for kids anyway.
No, we're not. We may talk about things that may relate to kids, like, Sonic the Hedgehog and things like that, but those are also games. Like, it's okay. And Minecraft. Like, these are also for adults, too. They're not just for kids.
Yeah, even though I think the age restriction makes the videos show up less.
Oh, it does. It does. That's why, technically, you have to be careful, but at the same time, we're over here like, who cares? But, Skull, now that you're back, I can go into the other heroes a little bit. Well, after my whole spiel I had with Ruthless about how there being too many of them at the same time. So, but it's okay because the show has a lot of characters too, anyway. So, work with what I got, essentially, and I like some of the characters. So, you ready for?
Do you?
I
What?
do. Well, I like what I've made them into. All right. All right. So, Skull, you ready to hear more trauma? That's basically all this is at this point. This is me just loading up these characters with trauma. Or building on their trauma, like Chloe. I know I told you I kind of stripped away the snobby rich girl thing that she had going for her in the show.
Fucking good, I hated that.
Well, made it a little bit better. So, she's still a brat. Because you can't really... You kind of grow out of it eventually, but when you have a situation like what she does, it's kind of like a defense mechanism almost. Like a shield for herself. Because for her, I built on the trauma of mommy issues. Ben said changing it where literally her mother did not give two shits about her. When Chloe was roughly 2 or 3, her mother left, was gone for a better part of a decade, comes back, and Chloe's like, oh, sweet, this is my chance to finally show my mom how much like her I am, because she had spent a good portion of her childhood trying to be like her mother, trying to get her mother's attention, when her mother was never there. So when her mother does come back, it's not for Chloe or anything else, it's to divorce her father and just take what she left behind and leave. And when Chloe does confront her mother in that case, all her mother has to say is, "Who are you?"
Oh.
Yep. And of course that destroys Chloe, but that is also around the time when she meets Pollen, the little bee Kwame. And Pollen definitely immediately becomes a surrogate mother, essentially, like a stand-in mother for Chloe, who does not necessarily completely whip her into shape, but gives her the opportunity to become a better person. And she does. She does become a better person when she's around Pollen and her family. The only problem is when you're a little monster for a good portion of your life and you're basically a teenager hanging around other teenagers that you've been stuck with for that long, they're going to remember that and they're not going to let that shit go easy. Some will. Some will look to see that you're becoming a better person, but then there's others who will just be like, nah, fuck her. She's just, playing us. In which case, that's where I say the brattiness comes in as a defense mechanism. Because people are still judging her for what she did in the past, despite her trying to become a better person now. And them not wanting to give her the benefit of the doubt. Some are, but a lot aren't. Yes. Kids more specifically, but that's how kids are. And so, So more of her arc is just trying to get people to like see she's not the same person, that she is different, that she's becoming a better person. I don't know if many people would agree with this, but this is how I interpret her. I always kind of saw Chloe as queer.
I can kind of see it.
Yeah. So I went with that angle, making her gay. And, or the kind that almost hates that she's queer. Just because she can't really find someone to, I'd say, like, connect with to date. Because that's probably like one of the harder parts of being queer and things like that. Is it's harder to find someone to connect with on a romantic level at times, because more often than not you're going to come across straight people, sadly, or people who are in a relationship and you're like, well, I'm fucked. Because I haven't released this chapter yet. It's one of the next ones on the list, but this might break your heart a little bit, Skull. When she's talking to Marinette, because Marinette is Ladybug at the time, is very apprehensive to trying admit that she is in love, because she has to essentially save Adrian from, well, Chat Noir from a sleeping curse, because it's like a fairy tale thing, and I was having fun with it. So leave me alone. It's fan fiction. It's all right.
Yeah.
And Chloe just kind of snapping at Ladybug, saying how shouldn't let her past define her or hold her back. That she should just move on forward and learn from her mistakes. And how if she does miss up on this opportunity, if they both do, if her and Shat both like pass up the opportunity for love, she will never forgive them, because for people like Ladybug, it comes so much easier than to people like Chloe. And she's not saying that because of the type of person that Marinette is, but because of how Marinette was born. Because Marinette is. I'm still debating between bi and straight, but for the time being, she is straight. So Chloe, she kind of envies and resents that because it makes her normal. It makes things easier for her. And for Chloe, it's despite, her privileged status, things have not come easily in certain regards. Friends, redemption, I guess you could say, to certain aspects, and love. And the last thing that she does say to Ladybug, because Ladybug does ask if Chloe would ever love Chat Noir, and Chloe's response is, "I will never love him like that. That is my fairy tale curse, one I was born with."
Oh.
And then she leaves. So I'm running that angle into it because, like, she actively wants that connection and that love, but she's not able to find it so easily. And you have people who don't want to give her the chance either. So she's kind of just internalized that, like, she's just not going to get it. And she hates it because, one, no one wants to, like, give her that chance. No one wants to see that she's actually a good person, even though she still has her bad qualities. On top of that, she just can't find anyone else that is queer and likes her the same way. So, you're welcome. Like I said, you can fit a whole bunch of trauma into these characters. You're welcome, Skull.
Rising gay.
It's fun. It's fun writing the tragic gay characters. But I was kind of considering making Sabrina her love interest, but I decided to make Sabrina straight, and there's not really much to Sabrina yet. She hasn't had really her chance to come into the limelight. I didn't really touch on this, but I know you saw the design, Skull, for Rooster Boy.
Yeah.
For Felix.
Yeah.
So Felix and Amelia are going to be very unique cases. Amelia falls into the same trauma as the rest of the Agrests and Natalie. The only difference is I'm playing more into the twin aspect with her and Emily, where Amelia was the one that latched onto Emily and looked to her for strength. Emily was the strong twin. She was the one with ambition and went out and did it. And she essentially was the one that actually grew up. Amelia never actually grew up. She's still immature, if you catch my drift. Emotionally, mentally, she's immature. She never actually grew up. We've known adults like this where they
Yeah.
can't really handle stress, they can't handle tough situations. They're always relying on other people. They never actually learn to be a functioning adult. And that's what happened
Yeah.
with Amelia. She
Yikes.
essentially is still mentally young because she never fully developed. Because she was always relying on someone else.
Yikes.
Yes. She eventually did marry, and everything was fine and rosy and peachy keen. She had a son, but then she lost her husband. And the husband
Yikes.
was the one that did all the adulting, including raising the son, essentially. So the moment that Felix lost his father, he spiraled.
Oh no.
And Amelia didn't help with that because she reacted how someone in her position would, just fighting back and just trying to manipulate Felix and guilt tripping him and everything along those lines. Because again, she never properly learned how to handle situations. She is still mentally like essentially the same age as what Felix would be. She's still like a
Oh,
teenager.
yikes.
Yeah, it's not fun dealing with that. And Felix, as a result, kind of warped something fierce. So he is not happy with his life. He's not happy with his mother. He's not happy with who he is. He comes to resent his cousin Adrian for the life that he has, because even though he still has his father who is an asshole, he has something that Felix will never have. And that is the mother figure. That is Natalie. And then when he goes to see Adrian later on, he starts to see what all he has and comes to hate Adrian all the more. And then he spirals further and further into a pretty much a full on psycho.
Oh boy.
Yes. Because the fun little thing with Felix prior to going to see his like family in France is he's a bit of a violent boy.
Oh boy.
Yes. So essentially, I've been kind of drawing from real life a little bit too for the development of the Kwamis and their involvement in human history. And I had the snake responsible for the Black Death, the bubonic plague. I had Tiki responsible for the 100 Years' War.
Yes, that stupid war that was a complete waste of time to history.
No, exactly.
It was a
And
stupid war that just there was nothing gained from it other than people dying.
yeah, yeah. Welcome
Fucking
I
to.
think the
history. Why
war
do
was
people?
like
Yeah.
over the Union over France and
I remember it was between England and France, but that's about it. But one thing I'm thinking about doing with connecting the Kwamis with history is making a connection for the rooster. So the rooster is the Kwami of animosity. And for those who aren't very wordy and whatnot, animosity is contempt, anger, rage. It is hatred, essentially, which is perfect for a fucking rooster. Because roosters are nasty creatures. I will die on that fucking hill. They're awful. I was thinking, what if a certain famous killer that could have been nothing more than a myth in England's history be the result of a Kwame
Ooh.
and being Jack the Ripper?
Ooh.
And where Felix and Amelia live is, I believe, England. I want to say it's London that they live in, but I could be wrong. But I know they definitely live in England, which adds some more contrast between him and Adrian, essentially, given the long history that England and France have. But him essentially being very violent in these terms, just being shy of willing to kill. But he does maim and fight, and he's just very aggressive and violent as a result of just all the anger and pent up rage, and nowhere for it to go except for on other people. He essentially does become a full on psycho because of his upbringing. And it's going to be fun writing that. It's going to be difficult. But holy fuck, there's just a whole bunch of trauma in these characters. Writing 101, trauma. That's all you need.
Slapped roof of car.
Like if you want if people to like your characters, trauma. It has to be good trauma too. Wouldn't you agree, Skull?
Yes. Slaps roof of car.
Fit so much trauma into this bad boy. Oh my gosh, it's so true. Like it's so sad. Like obviously not every character has to be traumatic. Like you gotta have some where there's some levity amongst the darkness. I think that's what also makes things like Fruits Basket so good because Toru is that one light amongst the sea of fucking trauma, and it's fucking great. Oh my gosh. I think that's ultimately what it is, like, as I write Miraculous and I kind of, like, make that connection, Marinette and a few of her friends are very, like, levity. There's not much trauma there. But then you have others. You have the Agrest family, whatever the fuck Felix's last name is. You have that family. Alex has her own trauma where I don't know how much you can relate to this one, Skull, or if you know someone who could relate. I've known a few people like this. I've kind of been in this situation myself, but more towards my mother. But when you're constantly being compared to someone else, usually like a sibling or
Yeah.
a friend or things like that, it's like, why can't you be more like this person? Or this person did this, why can't you do that? And so on and so forth. That
God, I hate hearing about this.
Yes. And that creates a whole lot of resentment and anger. So much of it. And with Alex, I wrote that in because she has an older brother who's supposed to be like a historian and whatnot. Push it even further where he is a successful person. He's in her mind got lucky in life. And essentially he's got a good job, good family. He has like a wife and everything and so on. But she's nothing like that. She's rebellious. She wants her own thing. She wants to be different. And her mother, more in particular, doesn't like that. Her mother is trying to force her into what she wants, not what Alex wants. But unlike Adrian, Alex has the will to fight. She has the will to go with what she wants. And it's built up a lot of anger and frustration. She is that skater punk who will willingly jump into a fight just because someone looked at her wrong. And has. Who is willing to beat someone close to death over something entirely stupid that had no consequence. But
Sounds
because.
about right.
Exactly! I mean, the moment I have a chance to actually focus on Alex is during Nightshade, which is right before she's completely traumatized with PTSD. More trauma. We're just packing it full here now.
Look at the podcast host.
I know, I saw. This baby can fit a lot of trauma. just get my miraculous cover and put trauma over it. It's accurate. But literally the moment I introduce Alex as a character of herself without the friend group, it's when she's standing between a woman and her abusive husband, and she jumps headfirst into a fist fight with this man. And the moment she has the upper hand, she takes her rollerblades and she swings and smacks them right into the man's jaw, breaking his jaw essentially. And once he hits the ground, just for a little salt in the wound, she kicks him in the nuts. Kick him while he's down. Oh gosh, Alex is fun. And then of course she gets attacked by a monster, and then trauma. Then she runs away from home. Which made all the worse because she's given a Kwame that no one can literally contain her. She can literally teleport with the Kwame's aid. It's
Oh god.
I know it's great. There's no containing her now. Oh gosh. It's fun. I'm sorry, this is fun. Rewriting these characters, adding in the trauma, making it darker is just it's fun. There are still some characters I'm still getting a feel for. I've introduced Mark and Nathaniel, which Nathaniel I'm kind of leaning towards doing more of a villain arc for him. Going almost full incel for him. I'm still debating it, but I'm leaning towards it.
I would laugh if you. I would laugh if there would be like this world version of Andrew Tate. Just be like, I'm a top G, and him being like that guy.
I'm considering it. I'm just like, because again, like when he's introduced in the show, he has a crush on Marinette. So I'm like, what if we take that and made him an incel?
Oh god.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Well, because my
God.
original idea
Weird.
was to make him bisexual and then have him in a relationship with Mark, but I'm like, what if we did something else?
I think the making him like a fucking incel and then just making like the guy who was just ultra incel just
Can't see past himself?
chest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. I have to say though that is more of a perfect idea.
And then you have Mark, who will become will be one of the good guys, where he wants to help. Like he sees, like he's a writer. He's an artist essentially. So again, one of the most perceptive people you can come across, and he wants to be able to help, and he does. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I want, because I'm not just trying to make him a shy, scaredy cat like he is in the show. I want a little bit more to him, a little more I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I haven't had a chance to really write him too much. But one thing I will say for his queer issues, Skull.
Ooh.
Yes. So like Dandy pointed out, Mark is 100% gay in my rewrite. Absolutely. Like Dandy called it 100%. With the Lynx boy. The Lynx boy.
I guess.
Like ass. I can't. Anyway, whereas Chloe has the issue where no one gives her the chance and she can't find anyone to really make a connection with because, well, trauma and then hatred of herself essentially. She doesn't completely love herself. She probably more hates herself than she loves herself. Whereas Mark's issue is he ends up falling in love with straight men constantly.
Oh, poor boy.
Yes.
I feel that pain. Oh my god, my first gay crush.
Was on a straight man.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's Mark's queer trouble, is that he keeps falling in love with straight people. I am considering, and I put a big considering on this because again, I'm still messing with orientations and whatnot, but I'm considering Mark and Luca.
I guess.
Because as Celia pointed this out too, which kudos on her part, because I agree with her. Luca gives off bi energy.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
And I will say for Chloe, what I'm thinking right now, Skull, I don't know if like either of you will agree with this, but I'm thinking Chloe and Kagame. Probably doing the same
Pardon?
with Kagame, you know, the one that was supposed to be paired with Adrian in the show, in place of Marinette.
Oh, yeah.
The one that most people will pair with Luca because they ship Adrianette. Just because, who else?
Yeah.
But I'm considering her with Chloe instead. It's gonna be a slow build up though. Is the only thing. So
I can see you.
well, because think about it, you have someone who knows nothing about Chloe, is very straightforward and to the point, where doesn't really have much of a sense of a humor. There's literally a portion in there where Julika and Alia kind of trick Rose into talking to the boys about romance. Because they get the romantic to talk about something that she enjoys, and that's about it. And Kagami's comment is that even possible to teach them about love? They're boys. And Shaq gets annoyed. Mark kind of just shrinks back, like, I'm not one of them. Luca ignores her, and then Nathaniel just kind of gets angry at her, too. Meredith's just like, oh, it's just a joke. And Kami's like, no, it wasn't a joke. I don't joke. I was serious. Like, that kind of person, essentially. So that's why I'm thinking Chloe, because I'm like, I feel like that's something Chloe needs in her life. Is she needs something like Kagami if she wants like a partner.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking, at least in terms of like characters together and whatnot. Because again, it's teenagers; you're gonna have this kind of stuff. But yeah, I got her coming in, like, again, very, I wouldn't say withdrawn, but more reserved, keeps to herself kind of thing. I don't know what other characters I'm missing at this point. There's so many of them. But yeah, no, we're gonna have. Oh yeah, and Lila. Lila's basically your trickster. Basically, any trickster god you'd come across that like to just cause mayhem. Any god of chaos, I guess is the best way to put it. Just chaos, mayhem everywhere.
My brain immediately thinks Loki.
Yep, I was trying to avoid
Yeah.
saying that, but that was the first thing my brain went to too. Was Loki.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why.
What?
Thank you, MCU.
What do you mean?
Why we all immediately just jump to Loki when we think about trickster gods. I blame the MCU. Them constantly shoving that down our throats.
Mythology for me.
Well, yeah, mythology for you, because you're our mythology nerd.
Teehee.
But
I will admit, the MCU version of that is so different from the fucking mythology.
well, yeah, I mean it's going to be. Let's be fair there.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically Lila's gonna be more of a Loki kind of character where she's just there to cause trouble. She does side with Papillon in terms of that because she's here to cause chaos and he's initially causing chaos. So she's gonna be siding with him just for pure shits and giggles. But she's also deception, so never trust her. Essentially. You're gonna have Amelia join Papillon as well because she wants her sister back. That is her other half, the actual adult of the two. Which, that's a whole nother problem. Felix, I'm thinking doesn't join Papillon immediately, but just as a chance to get to Chat Noir, who he does discover is Adrian, he'll join Papillon just so he can get to Cat, essentially. Just being a spiteful little bitch boy.
I see.
I'm still on the fence if Nathaniel should join Papillon, but he's definitely going to be a villain. Oh, there's one other person. I will mention this because she's not given a lot of time to develop. Like, she's literally just thrown in there to be a villain and not really do much else. And that's. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this name. Ondine. Which is basically Undine. And that is,
Oh boy.
yeah, I know. Literally just Kim's love interest. Like, she's literally thrown in, gets her advances rejected because Kim's an idiot. Like most kids, like most teen boys are. And gets akumatized. but I'm going to be throwing her in to hopefully join the team. I'm kind of thinking, Ruth, you might appreciate this. I'm thinking about giving her the goat for revelry, and her outfit, I'm thinking about making it Barbarian Rose. Yes.
I don't know how to feel.
Well, because here's the thing, because how she is, she's very spunky and lively, and kind of that person who would play a barbarian if they were a D&D player, kind of
Damn,
thing.
you're outing some people.
Well, not really adding. Like again, it's Ondine. She's actually in the show. She's a canon character.
I know I was like saying outing people with like the barbarian thing.
Well, I can't help it. Like she kind of like the way I'm writing her. She gives me that kind of vibe where she's like jump into the mix of things, kind of thing. Because literally, her first introduction when she's hanging out with Kim and Max is very energetic and excitable. And the moment that there's a fight that breaks out, she's the one to jump up and chant, "Fight, fight, fight!" before wanting to fight herself. You'd also say she's a bard too, so. She's a little bit of both. What was it? Alram, right? The bard barbarian?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So that's
I
why I was
remember
kind of
that
thinking.
pretty well.
Of course we do. How could we not? That was like the one thing they went for, and they did not like let up. They're like, I'm gonna be a bard barbarian, and they did. Oh gosh, it was great. I still liked Alram. Alram was an interesting character. But no, yeah, that's literally one thing. I don't know what to do for Kim, but like that'll come later down the line. Max is still the smart boy. I'm actually gonna base his design off a old friend from high school. Because whenever I think of Max, I think of this guy. Just very similar, like when it comes to Carapace, words, Turtle Boy's design. I was actually inspired by one of my managers, and it's funny because when I showed Kitty the finished picture, she said as it looks very much like him. I'm like, hey, let's go. So yeah, that's been the fun of the characters in as you've you've said, Skull slap the roof of the car.
Slaps roof of car.
We can fit a lot of trauma up into these bad boys. But again, I will stand by this. But trauma is what makes them interesting. And like again, you can still make characters without trauma interesting. You just you know.
Have to do extra steps.
Yeah. I mean, look at Sparrow from Vanguard. Like Sparrow has no trauma to her. She had a perfectly good life, a loving family, loving community. You could say because she lived in service of others and how she never thought of herself. That could be obviously like, that is an issue, but it's not really trauma.
Yeah, it's
It's
like a conflict.
yeah,
I
it's
really just
conflict.
think
It's like a character flaw.
yeah, like kind of like Steve Rogers. Actually, is exactly like Steve Rogers with how selfless he is. I hate to just insert the MCU, but it is a comic book thing. Of
Which
like
one is Steve Rogers?
Captain America,
Okay, thank you.
the first one.
I'm just like I don't know the names of the
It's all good.
yeah. I'm just like which one is that one?
Admittedly, I sometimes forget which ones
Yeah.
because they're so similar.
Yeah.
Some of them are
You could almost say like she's almost like a Superman sometimes, like depending on which depiction of Superman, I guess is the best way to put it. But
also
because I know some people compare Superman to Rogers. At least some people do. From what
they're
I've seen,
so different.
they are. Oh
I
wow.
have to say this. Superman is so different. I will have to say I have to like sometimes I have to step in and say they're so different. It's unbelievable. One one big difference. Yes, they're good characters, but like one is more like what I remember is like one. Yes, their personalities are similar, but their problems is totally different.
Well, it's
And
not a matter of
also,
the problems. It's more like their selflessness.
okay, it really depends on like what you're watching. Because if
That's what I'm
Smallville, I
saying.
would say
So
yeah.
it kind of depends on which Superman, because I know some versions of Superman are just like he's a complete asshole. But I
Okay,
think
we
that's more the
talk
movies.
about those.
we don't talk
We don't talk
about
about
we
those.
don't talk about those like we don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about that that shitty universe called
Was it?
Snyderverse.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Oh yeah, I just said it. Again, it really just depends. But no, yeah, like that's the type of person that Sparrow is. Like she is someone to sacrifice her own chances of happiness and things like that for other people so that they're happy. And then by extension, she's happy because she helped them be happy. You know, that type of character. Oh gosh. And again,
Wait, watch out! The Snyderverse is gonna fucking corrupt that shit.
oh dear lord.
Watch Sparrow just suddenly be super edgy.
Gosh. No, that's Arthur. Arthur is all the edge. He's all that sweet, sweet edge.
Yeah, like, damn, you just should have been like the fucking on a movie.
Oh my gosh. He's basically like Batman.
Okay, Batman, I had to say, okay, Batman, what that one is like, hmm.
Batman has his moments though, and depending on
He
who's
has his,
writing him, he really has his
like, yeah,
moments.
he has his moments, but like, he's not like the pure embodiment of edge.
It's not like Jason Todd.
Jason Todd is kind of, I will have to admit, like, he is quite edgy. Like, he's way more edgy than his fucking father. Like, 10 times. Like, imagine the mild parts of edginess from Batman and then heighten it. That's the best way to describe it.
Because isn't he the only one willing to kill?
Yeah, and
Of all the
also,
Robins?
yeah, and also he has, like, his family, his biological family had, like, some dark shit.
Oh yeah, true. Sorry to get off topic there for a bit, Skull.
It's okay. I spaced out working on it.
That's perfectly fine. But I will say this. I'm probably done talking about the miraculous rewrite characters and their trauma. Oh, all the fucking trauma. Well, there's only one, which isn't even her own fault, but it's more what will happen to her, I guess, eventually. And that's Rose. The one that I'm pretty sure you've all described as someone who never actually really grew up and is still like a child, that's still very innocent, but a teenager. Uh, there's not, I don't really know much about her in the show itself, but I need to pick those back up. Damn it, I didn't mean to throw those.
No.
Yeah, it's all right, but it's more her being a ballet student. She's like had a very good life. The only thing she doesn't really care about her life is the fact that her stepfather is extremely creepy. And her mother is, well, busy with work now. Because the man is a deadbeat.
Okay, I was like, for a minute, I was like, I hope I'm not correct with what I'm thinking.
Oh, you are. You are, actually.
Creepy father.
No, you are.
Uh,
Yep.
Can we move on, please?
that killed me a little bit inside. Can
Yeah.
we
I'm not
go?
thinking.
So, what's the next character of yours?
uh, let's see. There's Rose. There was. I already described Alex. Alia's not much to her. You missed the talk about Nino, Skull. Which, very basically, Nino was caught up in a mugging and watched his mother die in
Oh
front of
boy.
him.
Oh boy.
Oh, yes.
Slaps roof of car. Aggressively slaps roof of car.
And as a result, he keeps people at a distance now. He's afraid he's going to lose them. He believes he can't protect anyone if he couldn't keep his mother safe, even though in the heat of the moment it was actually her protecting him. But again, like trauma, you block out certain memories, so he doesn't remember everything that happened. As a result, he breaks up with Alia to keep her far enough where he couldn't, like, just being around him won't put her in danger, but still close enough to where she's still in his life. Which is still a dick move, but, like, you know, teenagers. And it all coming to a head when he tries to convince her not to be a hero. And she tells him to go fuck himself, and she doesn't want him in his life in her life anymore. Which then just kind of breaks him. And when he's offered the power of the turtle, which is protection, he goes pretty much full vigilante. Where he doesn't really fight the supernatural monsters of Paris, but more the mundane monsters.
Okay, that I dig that part. Like I find that part always like something that baffles me with every superhero story. It's like, okay, you're now doing these wild fights, but like why you're just focusing on that when there's other crimes like or even you doing something out of person like
Well,
as
for
like a
him, initially he was told by the turtle Kwame that, hey, I can keep you safe from being turned into a monster like the ones that have attacked the city, but you need to do something for me in helping the ladybug Kwame and her fight against these monsters. So he's pretty much told he has to do this if he wants to be kept from being turned into a monster. But
oh
it's
yeah.
in him trying to find Ladybug to like actually talk to her because I'm not. He wouldn't actually know. He knows Alia is a hero, but he's trying to like respect her wishes and stay out of her life and way to like protect her and whatnot. But also like still stay close enough. It's that mentality. You're close enough where you're still with them, but you're far enough where you're not actually with them. It's like a weird middle ground. But
Pretty
it's
much obsessive kind of like obsessive love.
almost. It's
Kind of.
it's a weird way of thinking where it's like I wouldn't really call it obsessive love. It's more misguided thinking where you think just because
Yeah.
they're not actually with you, they'll be kept safe, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's when he goes to try and find one of the heroes to talk to them, because again, he's trying to stay away from Alia to respect her wishes, and because he doesn't want her learning who he actually is, because he's trying to keep it a secret. And Alia will know the moment she hears his voice. You know, that kind of thing. And also, at this point, he's still infected with the butterfly's power, so he still has these kind of whispers in his head that are like pushing him towards darkness, and he's trying to fight against it, which is going to be a whole nother thing. But it's in trying to find them that he comes across actual crime. Basically, a man getting mugged, and he jumps in to save him. And it's in that moment when he realizes I could easily keep Paris safe from other monsters. And it doesn't just have to be supernatural. Like, he'll still help Ladybug and Cat Noir when they need him for Paris, but otherwise, he's going to do his own thing. Kind of thing.
I dig that a lot more than anything. Like I find that one really interesting. Admittedly, I find like the whole the monster shit. It's like like this has always been a problem with me with like some of the superhero shit. Granted, I will admit it's less of a problem in DC because
It's
it
DC.
feels more DC because like they don't like they have like a lot of street level fighters
Well, I
and
mean,
like
look at Batman for that example. Like,
yeah
Batman is literally fighting everyday crime.
yeah and also like there's also a lot more of those people and also that every hero eventually does like every hero is technically doing like almost 90% of those heroes does street level like does deal with street level crime uh, compared to Marvel. I don't see Tony Stark look like going down to like New York City and just busting up something like busting up like a fucking crime organization because like at most if he is doing that either because of Spider-Man. That's really it.
I was about to say, wouldn't it be like Spider-Man to be one of the only ones to actually do that?
Yeah, and like
It's
he is one of
hard,
the few
like,
people,
get the little
and also Daredevil, and there's like a handful of people that do that, but like every hero, like almost like there would be, they just focus on that one thing, like they just do that thing. While the DC heroes, they kind of try to do heroic shit either way.
Which is fair. And like I can at least say in terms of with the miraculous AU, or you right and whatnot, it kind of makes sense why some of the others wouldn't consider regular crime as an issue because it's not something they necessarily experience. Like they hear about it, but it's not something they've actually had to live through. Not like Nino who was caught in it and who had to witness someone he loved dying right before him.
Yeah.
Like he would consider that. Like the moment he sees and hears it, he's like, "Nope, I'm going." That's priority right there. The others they would help, but it wouldn't be their priority.
Yeah, kind of like Marvel.
Yeah, kind of like they're like the Marvel heroes, and you have Nino who's Batman.
Honestly, Neo kind of strikes me more like he strikes me like he's kind of like the Spider-Man of this universe.
He's a Spider-Man mixed in with Captain America because of the whole shield thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much. He'd be like if Captain America would do Spider-Man stuff.
Wow, something that I would actually like. And actually would, I think that would fit way more than the actual name Captain America. Marvel, take this idea, okay?
Oh dear.
Please don't. I don't need another shitty what if that just turns into fan service.
Okay, no, not in the what if, but like a comic book, like a comic line of like him just literally just dealing with street crime, and I wouldn't mind seeing that type of comic.
I mean, if it works for like certain heroes and whatnot, that's the thing.
Yeah, but like this is where I kind of will point out. This is where I might have like a really weird opinion, but I definitely will stand on this. If you don't have like a hero, like it does not feel like a superhero if you cannot have like the hero save civilians. Like
Captain America was like a
save.
symbolic thing, though.
It is symbolic, but like at the same time, that's the name super and hero. If you remove the hero part, they're just a super.
Yeah. I
I
kind of
know
see that.
I know it's a weird. I know it's a weird take, but I got to say.
I mean, I get it. I can see it. At that
Off
point,
Deadpool cough.
yeah, Deadpool, fuck's sake. Yes, we all know. Don't worry.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What could we possibly mean?
I have no idea.
Sure. None whatsoever.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Sure. That's what they
I
all
don't
say.
understand.
It's bullshit.
I don't understand what you're saying. What you're referring to.
Sure.
I'm just the here.
Just
Chilling. I'm just the here.
as we talk about both like characters and even like superhero stuff here.
I'm just
That's what you
the
get.
here.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna have fun with Nino's character from here on out, just because of he becomes that vigilante in the night where he does take on crime, and it will segment perfectly into Felix as the rooster when he does arrive, because again, he is an angry boy who takes his angers and frustration out on the people. And because he has a Kwame, that makes him extremely dangerous because he uses it in very life threatening kind of ways that would put people in danger.
Damn.
And
He strikes me as like the fucking joke, like the Joker, not Joker, but like the. I'm trying to remember his name. The comics.
Are you talking about the one where, like, Batman essentially gets possessed by the Joker?
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue of the villain name. He strikes me with the image that with the drawing. He kind of strikes me of like the kingpin of the universe. Like I don't know why, but I have a feeling that he would been like a just like try and make a gang. The
I
rooster
could
guy.
I could see him as a Kingpin type character.
Yeah.
Almost like a Luan, but if he actually was evil.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, he probably very easily could. He kind of already looks like a punk ass gangster.
He strikes me more like the um 50s criminals
Yeah.
with
Oh,
the look.
I wanted to keep some of that whole well dressed manner, essentially. Because like even though he is a teenager, I feel like he'd still have that piece to him. It could just be me, but you know.
Some teenagers have a really good sense of fashion.
They do, and some do enjoy that more formal look as well. I know it wasn't really a formal dress, but the guy I'm gonna base Max off of in terms of design, he was always that more like business casual kind of guy. Like he had like not quite sweater, like it's kind of sweaters. At least from my
Sweater
memory.
vest?
Almost a sweater vest. And he'd have like, sometimes he'd wear jeans, but then he'd wear like nice like khakis.
Mm.
And I don't know if he actually wore sneakers. I generally don't remember if he ever did or not. I almost want to say he actually did wear like nicer shoes. I wouldn't say dress shoes specifically, but like just nice shoes. Not like as casual as sneakers. Like if you know what I mean. I hope. And then you have Felix who's just
Nicer shoes that aren't necessarily dress shoes. You mean like Doc Martin?
yeah, kind of like that. Like he was definitely that well dressed business casual, had his life put together kind of thing, and he knew what he was doing. Like he was a smart cookie. He was that straight A's, always here, always everything. Like he was that type. He also liked Final Fantasy, and I'm like, you know what? Let's go. Yeah,
Damn.
I'll be yeah. Again, like yeah, like you said, like some teens do generally just like dress a little bit nicer, and it's just how they dress. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of say this for Felix. It's still almost casual enough, like the rolled up sleeves and whatnot.
I only
But
knew one of those in high school, and I'm still mad about this. I only knew one of those in high school, and I didn't learn until after I graduated that he was gay, which
aww,
I'm mad about because gay crush. But like, yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry to hear that,
he
Skull.
had that sort of fashion sense.
Man, we really need to make like a drinking game out of that. Out of the crap like no, never mind. No.
Oh yeah,
This.
missed crushes opportunities,
Yeah.
gay trauma, that kind of stuff. Is that what we're talking about here, Ruthless?
I was tempted to say that, but I was like, should I go there with the whole doing that type of idea? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I should retract it.
I don't know. I can bust out the meme where it's like spin the wheel.
Oh god.
It's like whenever the gay group gets together, you either talk about political shit, someone sits there unloads all their trauma while everyone listens. Hold up. I don't know if I have the meme somewhere, but like I want to
I
find that
remember
again.
that.
You
I
remember it though,
remember.
don't you? It's
Yeah.
true though. That's what happens. When all the gay people get together, that's what we talk about. We talk about like a whole bunch of shit. It's usually one of those five things. I wonder if it's my Pinterest boards.
Probably everything's on Pinterest. Let's be honest.
I know everything is. It's great. I need to know which board it's in though. That's the problem. That's the ultimate issue. Is like which one? Oh wait, no, I'm in the wrong thing. I need undermine. Because I think I put in my LGBTQ one. But no, yes. Um, yeah, so that's a. Oh, I just found it too. The gang gets political, being silly together, group therapy, one person info dumping while everyone else listens, drama, and that gay shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. What about you guys?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
It's great.
There's like two people in our group that I can. There's like two people I can think of right away that are usually the ones to info dump. In our group, at least.
Aren't you one of them?
Yes.
I
You're
had
the
a.
other?
Wait, wouldn't I be the other one then, or would that be
Yeah,
Ghost?
that's what I
Oh,
said. You're the other one.
oh, okay, I was about to say, like, I don't know, like, I have my moments, but I don't tell you guys necessarily everything. At least listen to the podcast, because then I'm just like, you know what? Sit here and listen and deal with it. The only thing you can do is click off, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, hell, talking helps. As much as it doesn't seem like it, talking does help. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
But, no, yeah, so Ruthless. A little more interested in the miraculous rewrite after hearing all the characters.
Yes. Even though I was pretty very, very, very biased about just hating Miraculous so much. Just to the point where I'm like hearing the series, I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna avoid
You're
this.
like kind of in that spot where like anything would be better.
Yes.
But then after hearing it, you hear how mine's more superhero based and like anime magic girl superhero kind of thing.
See, I don't mind that genre. It's just like this the fucking show just does it so horrible.
It's
It's
a
just like,
matter about using the tropes correctly. That's ultimately what
yeah.
it is.
Like the tropes, and also not to mention is like shit just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, unfortunately. I am downloading this and I am posting it to one of the Discord servers. Probably into the mine. Oh boy. Anyway, um, guys, got anything else you want to add? Say maybe. Yes. No. Maybe
Oh,
so.
good.
There we go. And then this is for you guys because I'm gonna share this image with you guys because I think it's a bit of a mood. So Lizzie posted it in his Discord server and I'm like yoink. It's a mood. It's a motherfucking mood. Anyway, I think it's a good place to end off on unless Ruthless or Skull wants to say anything.
Well,
I'm good.
You're good,
Um,
Ruthless.
yeah. My focus is starting to drift from here to
audience,
the art
ham
I'm
audience.
doing and also ideas for the AU I'm working on.
Did I help give you some ideas, Skull?
Yeah. I'm also working on an AU thing right now, which is my focus is going.
The fun of it all, right? All right. Well, if that is the case, this has been Lotus, Skull, and Ruthless with our 18th episode of characters, all that fun jazz. You guys have a good morning, night, afternoon, evening, whatever the case may be, and we'll see you next week.